All right, Elaine, can you hear me? Okay, I can't hear you.
Okay. I'd like to announce that a quorum is present. The meeting is duly called, and notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act. The time is 6:01 p.m. While we no longer are limiting the number of staff and community members as in-person attendees, we respectfully ask that you maintain social distancing and other health protocols while attending this evening's board work session. In addition, we ask that those in attendance conduct themselves respectfully and at all times during this meeting. Any outbursts or disruptive behaviors may result in your removal from the board meeting. The following board members are in attendance: Tracy Miller, Allison Lasan, Catherine Sells, Dr. Buddy Bonner, Angie Cox, Christy Hassett, and Jenny Prozic. I'll go ahead and pray. Father, thank you for a good summer, and we just look forward to a great launch of the school year in a different way, in a new way that we haven't experienced in a while. And we know that brings with it opportunities, tensions, jubilation in some cases, excitement. And we just ask that you'll give us wisdom as we make decisions to do what's right for the students in our community, for the parents, for the taxpayers, and for the community at large. So we ask also for wisdom for our staff. We ask for safety for the students that are coming back and the staff that will be working with them, and just that we'll do the things that are most important for the people that we serve. And we thank you for this opportunity. In Jesus' name, amen. Please join us for the pledge. You want to read these, or our vision statement? You want me to just read this, or?
No,
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Miller. So we're looking at our I statement: I collaborate, communicate, and persevere. And so our focus is create formal and informal opportunities to communicate our learning. Many of our teachers reported back today. The rest of them report back tomorrow. And of course, we're really excited about their return, and also looking and re-emphasizing that there's a lot of ways for students to communicate what they learn. And of course, for us, we understand the STAR test is one of those, but only one of those ways to communicate learning. So.
Oh, mission statement? No. Oh, I'm sorry. So you just did change it. I'm sorry. Persons desiring to address the Board of Trustees must fill out a speaker's card. In accordance with district policy, only speaker cards addressing items on tonight's agenda will be acknowledged. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes. The board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda. We have no speaker cards this evening. First item, Dr. Rogers.
Thank you again. So just real quick, wanted to give you some updates. For instance, a lot of back-to-school volunteer have been working diligently on our back-to-school fair that we're getting ready to serve about 4,000 students with school supplies and other needs. We welcomed back our campus administrators last week with Thrive, and Dr. Miller and Dr. Rapp and the school chiefs did a great job with that, and just a lot of great learning opportunities with our campus administrators. Last week I had the privilege of welcoming Judge Jan, who is the Denton County mental health judge, and Monya Crow and a lot of other mental health experts from across the DFW area. That LISD hosted a summit, a mental health summit, and it went great. And just they worked for a day and a half trying to figure out how there could be more collaboration to serve mental health needs in our area. And I greatly appreciate Monya and Jill Adams for their work leading that. And then, of course, HR has been very busy hiring teachers and others, and as always, had the opportunity to visit with our new hires, and out of that group, there are a little over 100 LISD alumni returning to our district to work. So we're really excited about that. Last Monday, a week ago, we had the first Denton County Zoom meeting in the area that's hosted by Judge Eads. Great discussion. I actually asked several questions, and we are so appreciative of the work that Denton County has done as far as their partnership. Just a couple of things. We currently have 2,410 active COVID cases in Denton County. We last year at any given time in the end of January, we had 235 hospitalized COVID cases. As of last Monday, it was 53. So it certainly had grown in the last 3 weeks from about 10 to 53. So we're absolutely, I think my point of bringing this up is, please rest assured we're paying attention to all that data. Positivity rates in Denton County were at an all-time low for COVID of 2.5% in mid-June. Last week they were up to about 15%. Most of that is related to the Delta variant. They reported that 55.36% of eligible individuals, and here's where the percentage dropped when they made 12 to 18-year-olds eligible to get the vaccination, and the percentage dropped because the pool became larger, but 55.3% of those are fully vaccinated, including 12 to 18-year-olds, and then nearly 63% have received at least one dose, which is much better than our state's average. I already mentioned 83% of the COVID cases that we're seeing in Denton County and really statewide and even southern region of the U.S. are Delta variant related. And of course, most of that is due to unvaccinated individuals. And so, as you might imagine, Denton County Public Health is still absolutely recommending people get vaccinated, as certainly we would. As you know, Board, we absolutely highly encourage and will continue to do so those folks that are not vaccinated to continue to wear masks in our schools and in other public spaces. And of course, you also know that we are not allowed to mandate the wearing of mask. And Denton County Public Health continues to offer vaccine clinics, and there's plenty of vaccine available. Some of our protocols, as I just mentioned, we're not allowed to mandate masks, and of course that was initially determined by the governor's order GA 36. We will continue, board and parents, families, to do our electrostatic cleaning of our classrooms like we did throughout all of last year. And that's all classrooms. We will continue to contact trace close contacts, but students who may have been exposed after LISD performs contact tracing will not be required to quarantine. So, and so one of the questions we face is, well, why can't we know our own staff's vaccination status? I get asked that. Well, last April, before GA 36 came GA 35, which says the vaccination status of individuals as private health information that no government entity should compel disclosure. We are not allowed to force staff to tell us if they are vaccinated or not. Now, Anecdotally, I feel good about where I think our staff is, but I can't tell you an exact percentage. And then another question that I get asked sometimes is, well, why can't we mandate all of our employees get the vaccine like some companies are doing, like you've seen recently with Walmart or Disney or whatever? And once again, GA 35 prohibits a government entity from compelling an individual to receive a COVID vaccine. So we are not allowed to do that legally. Just a reminder, our communications department and our schools folks have done a great job with our FAQs, and that is available at lisd.net back to school. We talked, and we'll talk a little more on Wednesday when we talk budget, about the 900 families that had applied to for a full-time virtual option. And of course, House Bill 1468 didn't pass the legislature, and of course, so that's not an option. So I did ask Amanda Brim to just do a short survey of those 900 families, just to sort of determine, hey, what's your intent for next year, just to where we could have a better understanding. And I will tell you that of the close to 400 responses that we've had up to this date, still 80.4% of our families are planning to return to LISD. So overall, that's good news. I totally get that some families are in a bind on that, and I certainly wish that there were other options, but I just wanted to share that information. So with that, that's really all I have, and I certainly will entertain any questions if you have any.
Dr. Bonner?
Just a real quick question. I'm assuming last week there was some conversation with administrators, campus administrators, about those two items on non-disclosure of vaccination status and that sort of thing. Can you just speak to that real briefly?
Yeah, we absolutely have made it real clear that we cannot put any pressure whatsoever on our staff to disclose their vaccination status or to get, the vaccine. Certainly, that's an individual's right, we I think emphasize that numerous times.
Mrs. Prosnick? Ms. Sells? Mrs. Hahn? Mrs. Cox?
Hello? There's that button, right button. So just a quick question. I'm, being on the board a long time, we've always been able to accomplish it, but how confident are we feeling about filling staff by next week from the staff that we needed?
Yeah, I think, and I'll certainly let Ms. Smith chime in. I think for most teaching positions in general, I think we feel pretty confident. I think for some specialized teaching positions, bilingual, special ed, there's going to be a little bit of lag. And then, of course, our biggest, issue too is some support staff positions. And, y'all actually did a lot to try to improve the recruitment of that by changing, the minimum wage on that to $15 an hour and a lot of other things. It's a tough workforce out there right now. I mean, every place I drive by or every restaurant or anything else I go into, there's a help wanted sign. I was actually on the phone having a discussion with Sarah Bonser, the superintendent of Plano, today about some other items, but I said, hey, are y'all, facing some of the same things regarding staffing? And she said, absolutely. So, Sheila, I don't know if you want to add.
Well, I'll just say, while we may not be 100% staffed like we would optimally like to be, I do think last Friday, the elementary chiefs, Dr. Rapp, myself, and our directors definitely met together and came up with a doable plan that we are going to take care of students on the first day. And I think Dr. Talbert is doing the same thing with her special needs. So while I will say we're maybe not going to be 100% on what we would want our plan A to be, we have absolutely addressed needs, made some modifications, made some changes, and will be ready for students.
Okay, I have one more question. Thank you for that. You never want to be prepared or ready for the 11th when it comes. I know we're talking about construction today, but are we going to have any issues with any of our schools that had the construction updates or anything on opening and being ready for our kids as well?
That's exactly why I asked Mr. Fight to come talk to you in a few minutes. So,
Dr. Rogers, I would just say thank you for all the work you guys are doing, and we get a plethora of emails like you do, and people have a lot of opinions and ideas and what the right strategy is, and the only reason I'm editorializing here is to kind of support the district. I know Melanie and all the team has been working really hard, and I had an opportunity to speak to one of the healthcare providers that I didn't know was actually advising us on Friday, and I appreciate the community support. There are going to be things that some people just don't like. We're doing the best we can, balancing individual freedoms and respect for each other, and I appreciate the district taking a position to encourage, as appropriate, the vaccine and other protocols, but yet I hope that people will alternatively not try to shame folks for, and I'm talking families as well as staff, others into feeling that they need to be pressured into a restriction that they're not comfortable with. So.
yeah, thanks, Mr. Miller. I had the opportunity this morning to welcome back all of our school nurses and all of our, and, it was a great visit, and, I thank them for really their heroic work always, but particularly this past year. But, we know that, we still have a lot of tough navigation forward, and, but we will do everything we can to treat all families right, and I certainly understand both sides of the dilemma that families are facing, and we'll just do our very best. That's all I can promise.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Youngs, you only have 7 items, so you can go through them at will.
This next part of the agenda will be handled by Randy Fight. Randy?
So is there any way we can maybe do the construction update first? It's a little bit out of order, but that.
We're going to do the update, so which is listed as G. We're going to do that first, because we think that will actually answer.
All right. Well, thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll run through them. So good evening, Dr. Rogers, President Miller, and board. Pleased to be here again to give another construction update. Let me get one thing off the table real quick. Yes, we will be ready for first school. You'll see as we go through the PowerPoint here, we've been thrown a lot of challenges this summer, but we've tried to work through those. And certainly there's some last-minute items we're working on, but yeah, I'm confident we're ready for school at all of our locations. So let's start. Tonight's basically just an update of this summer. So I'm not going in the past and talking about the updates of all the years. I wanted to start by just a list of exactly what we had going on this summer. So the first slide here is all the new construction and additions and renovations that we had going on. And the very top one is our brand new Memorial Elementary STEM Academy. Next one, Lewisville High School Athletics. We had some fine arts projects at DeLay, Huff Hines, and the Colony High School, and then the Dale Jackson renovation. So as I mentioned, some of these still have some work, last-minute items we're working on, but again, they will be ready when students return. 20-year refreshes. So you remember how much work just one 20-year refresh is. You can see how many we had going on this summer. So at the top of the list is the elementary schools, Bridlewood, Forest Vista, Homestead, Prairie Trail, Southridge, and Wellington. Now, of those, Homestead, Southridge, and Wellington was just the first summer. So those were ceiling and above work. But Bridlewood, Prairie Trail, and Forest Vista were summer 2. So those are, in a sense, complete. You'll see the finishes as we go through some pictures. And then, of course, we have the 2 big high school renovations at Flower Mound High School and Hebron High School, 20-year refresh. Those are ongoing. We've been there a couple of years now, and we'll be there through next summer. So, and then finally, The remainder of our projects I just kind of put on a slide as miscellaneous. We did, some flooring replacements, re-roof at Heritage, 2 playground replacements, stadium turf at 3 of our high schools, track replacements at 3 of our middle schools, some Purnell demolition and Mill Street completion items, Lakeview Middle School electrical upgrades, the emergency responder radio system. We have a renovation going on upstairs for guidance and counseling. We have a small middle school STEM signage project, and of course, the central parking lot expansion, which is phase 1 of one of the GMPs we're talking about tonight. So, a little bit about the construction outlook, what some of the issues that we've been having. I've mentioned many times, both in this meeting and in our updates that we send in, rising material and supply costs. I'm sure everybody in this room has experienced something that they've tried to purchase, and you're spending more money on that. Well, we're certainly experiencing that in construction. The second item here is concrete allocations. So what that means is, if you're a concrete subcontractor, the batch plant is only allocating a certain amount of concrete to you. You have to decide which of your projects you're going to use that on weekly. So the days of being able to pour as much concrete as we could physically pour in a day, we weren't able to do that this summer. Hopefully that's going to end soon. I'm hearing that some of the batch plants are starting to let up on that a little bit, but it's a little bit too late for us now. So that certainly did affect some of our projects. The February freeze, one thing that impacted was the landscaping industry. So not only did it affect schools, but every business, every home, and of course everybody wants to have their bushes ripped out and replaced. And so that caused 2 things. One was materials were a little bit more scarce, but also really a labor issue. So I mean these landscapers are just busy all across the Metroplex right now. And then finally the material delivery delays, and I mentioned a couple of these just this past week. So the locker suppliers. All of our contractors are saying the locker suppliers just won't even give a date. They just say, hey, we can't provide your lockers when we said we were going to. On our projects, that affects LHS Athletics and the Colony High School dance locker room. So I put in all these in blue what our solution was, and so on that we installed temporary lockers. So we have something there that they can use until the permanent arrives. The next one is acoustic wall panels. So this is just like these panels you see in the back of the room here, a fabric wrapped panel. Those won't be installed at Huffines, Delay, Bridlewood, or Prairie Trail. Now, if you didn't know the wall panel was supposed to be there, you probably won't even notice because we have the walls finished, they're textured, painted, ready to go for school. The next one is classroom tack wall, very similar material, the tackable surface that we put in the classrooms. This is at Bridlewood and Prairie Trail. Each one of those projects had a new wing. So Bridlewood was a 2008 edition, and Prairie Trail was a 2007. Both of those were alternates to accept, to do finishes in those rooms, and we accepted that alternate, but that means that those materials were ordered a little bit later than the base bid. So we have all the tack wall in the base bid, all the rest of the school. What this looks like, our solution for the one wing in each campus is the existing tack wall that was there, that if we hadn't accepted the alternate would have stayed there. It's still there. So we have tack wall in the space. And then on Thanksgiving break, the plan is to come in and change that out. And then finally, so Bridlewood, Forest Vista, and Prairie Trail are our 3 Summer 2 20-year refreshes. Summer 2 is when you get the new furniture, right? We heard all through the spring and early summer, hey, no problem, we're on target, we're on target. And then all of a sudden, one after another, we started hearing this supplier's got an issue and this supplier's got an issue. So our furniture vendor's been great working with us. They have been able to provide, temporary student desks, temporary teacher chairs. We will have furniture for every student, every teacher that needs one. It either came on a temporary kind of a loaner basis from the furniture supplier, or we had some existing furniture in the district that we utilized for this need here. It's going to take a couple of months to get all those new furniture items in and kind of cycled in, but we certainly will do that. One thing that wasn't on this slide, I turned this slide in last Friday. Over the weekend, we did have a little bit of a manpower issue at the Colony High School on the flooring. And so one of their flooring sub at the Colony High School Fine Arts just was not able to man the job this weekend. So we've been working on that all morning, developing a plan to get those rooms knocked out, get the floors in there so that the Fine Arts folks can utilize those spaces this week. All right, so I'll go through the construction updates, and this is where a bulk of the slides are, and I'll kind of go fast through the pictures. But our first one is Memorial Elementary School and STEM Academy. You've seen this image before, but now it's done. This is you walk in the front door, you're looking down all the way to the back door, and this is the main corridor there. It turned out really nice. This is that front reception desk again. And we've talked about these many times, the collaboration spaces inside those classroom wings. There's 2 images of that. And here's one of the classrooms, a typical classroom. Furniture's in. On this one, we did get all the furniture at this school. We're just waiting on some bookcases that are showing up this week. But you'll see floor is ready, everything's ready in this classroom for students. Here's an image of the library. This is the flexible furniture that wasn't in the image last time I showed it. That furniture is able to be moved around in any configuration they want. So the campuses really love that. At the back of the library, this is we call it a computer lab on the plans, but it's really kind of a makerspace. So you can do a lot of things in this space. It's just kind of a lab on the back side of the library there. It's a really neat, transparent all the way around. You'll see the cord reels, all the power capabilities in there. It'll be a great space for STEM. Here's the serving line, ready to serve students' meals on the 11th. There's an image this is the main playground. There's also a pre-K playground on the north side of the building. And then this is an image of a walkway canopy cover, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. I wanted to show an image of what that actually looks like. So current update at Josie. We do have the building temporary certificate of occupancy, which means the building can be used. We do not have the final CO yet. That's tied to the completion of some exterior items. And we've had this before. Hedrick Middle School last year, you'll remember, we have the TCO. There's some things on the site we have to finish up to get that final. Teachers and staff have begun moving in. A lot of activity over there last week and this week. Parents are coming in to register their students. So some of the ongoing installations at Josie is landscaping. I mentioned this is one where the landscaping did affect us, both material and labor. Good news here is the irrigation's complete. Trees and shrubs are planted, and they're just finishing up the sod installation. So when you drive by the site, they're laying that sod all the way around, making good progress, and they promise they're going to be done for the start of school. And of course, we'll clean and power wash that site and get it ready for school. The next one is traffic signal. So this is actually my first go around with a traffic signal. The city of Lewisville made us put a traffic signal in on Josie Lane, very busy road. So with that installation, the poles are installed. If you drive by today, you'll see a couple of the arms with the traffic signals on them. This still needs to be energized by CoServe. That whole process is in the works. Everybody promises us that they will be ready for school. They have to blink for 3 days before you can actually program those. But everybody promises they'll be done. But just in case, we have been working with the city traffic engineering department, and we do have a plan B in case we have to go that route. We will have school, but we really feel like these will be ready. So those walkway canopies. So when the original material was delivered to the site and they unwrapped it, they found that a lot of that material was damaged. It had almost like corroded looking. It wasn't dented. It was just not a good product. So they had to send that back and order all new material. And of course, now we got caught in the material delivery conundrum that we have going on. So completion of those canopies is expected prior to school starting. If it's not done, it won't affect having school. What these are is the covered areas for students at the parent drop-off and pickup and at the bus drop-off and pickup. So you saw in one of the pictures that one of the canopies is up. They're just working on the front of the building now. And then lastly, the interior graphics. Those graphics have been fabricated. Again, they should be installed before school. If not, all those get this. There's a lot of graphics because it's the STEM Academy. So, and I'll have some STEM images later. But if those graphics aren't installed by the first day of school, obviously that won't affect having school there. So the next one is Lewisville High School athletic renovations. So I always start off by showing this slide here. So this slide just shows the complexity of the project, the sheer number of buildings that were associated with it. If you'll notice up on the top side of the page here, the press box and the trainers and wrestling locker room next to it. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So here's some images. This is the new front entrance to the stadium. So again, the idea is if you're a home side fan, you're going to go to the right-hand side ticket booth, enter, and go to the right. If you're a visitor's side fan, you'll go to the ticket booth in the background there, go to the left side, through the gate and to the left side to the visitor stands. This is an image of the home side ticket booth and concession building. Here's an image of the press box. It's just a shot of one of the inside of one of the locker room buildings. And here's one of the locker rooms. Now, please note the lockers. I'll talk about that in a second. These are the temporary, right? So that's why they're not. That's why they're not maroon. They're not the LHS colors. So, current update on LHS: the buildings on the north and east side, so where the old athletic director's office used to be, and on the visitor side, those will all be turned over before the start of school. The press box and trainers wrestling building were the ones that were. Those were the last ones done, and they were the ones that were delayed due to that all that wet rain that we had in the spring. The current plan is to be done with to turn over the trainers wrestling building on the 20th of this month, and then the press box will be complete for that first home varsity game. Polk tells us they're confident they can get it done for the first home game there. Again, temporary lockers were installed here. That was just our way of solving that problem. But obviously, they will get the brand new lockers as soon as they arrive. Next, we have I've got pictures of the three. So I didn't include any pictures of a summer 20-year refresh because it's going to look exactly like it did. There's no finishes. So all three of the summer 20-year refreshes, I have some images. And just so we can, just for a bit of nostalgia, we can look at what it looked like before. This was the obviously casework, flooring. You'll see some of the colors that were popular back then. Ceramic tile in the restrooms. And this is what the hallway looked like before. Just another classroom. So here's some after images. So this is, what this is the looking into the library. This is a STEM Academy. And if you remember, the STEM Academies we've done up to this point all had an open concept. They had no walls, no windows. We were asked to look into, starting with Bridlewood STEM, hey, is there any way we can put some windows, just the sound issue? And so that's the approach we took on this one. Here's an image of the new gymnasium flooring. Hallway. Now this school was waxed on Saturday, so I didn't have an image of the wax on the floor yet, but you get the idea of the finishes. Here's an image of the ceramic tile in the restroom alcove. Inside of the restroom, new tile, new partitions. Now here's the classroom, new tack wall, new flooring, everything, new furniture's in here. Another classroom and refinished lockers. So on this one I have some images. This is the Bridlewood Bronco image. This is the STEM Academy logo that you'll see inside the school now. And then this is the marriage of the two. So you've got the Broncos, the scene, and then you've got the STEM logo kind of bringing that all together. All right, the next one is Forest Vista 20-year refresh. So before we had a little bit of everything, some maroon, green, yellow, blue, light green, you name it. Images of that. Now here's the after. So very clean, using kind of the feeder pattern colors. An image of the library there. Furniture's on site in there, just stacked up. Here's one of the classrooms. Now this is one of the rooms where we don't have the student desk. They're bringing the temporary, right? So you just see the chairs there. Again, more classroom view, all new finishes, everything's ready to go. This is the cafeteria with the new tables and their restroom tile. And then finally, Prairie Trail 20-year refresh. Now this one's even better. This has got purples and pinks and turquoise, and even the ceiling grid had some nice purple going on there. So there's images before, and here's after. So again, going kind of with the feeder pattern color scheme. This is one of the trophy cases. Just looking down one of the halls, again, pre-wax picture there. One of the classrooms here. Again, just all the finishes complete in there. And this is their restroom tile pattern in the alcove. And then here's their mascot there. All right, so Hebron High School 20-year refresh. I got some images here. So we finally got to renovate the main hallway of these. And so you can see the new lighting, finally got rid of the green, the old style lighting that we had in there. A big upgrade here, I think, on the main hallway of Hebron. Here's just another image of a classroom, the main corridor in the classroom wing. New lighting, new flooring. Again, just more finishes, just kind of showing. Now Hebron High, the high schools, I showed this for a reason, just to bring up that they were not budgeted for new furniture on the high schools, and so those are the old desks that we had to bring in, but the classroom is updated and complete, has new technology and everything there. And then one more image, a couple more images of hallways, just the new flooring and then the cafeteria. So Hebron High School, so the summer phase, like I say, we're going through phases of this campus. Summer phase is now complete. We're going to be focusing on the next phase. We're still finishing up some last-minute items, some final clean, just some last-minute things. But the biggest issue here, we met out there last week, and there's just an overabundance of furniture in the campus. It's stacked up in the annex. It's just there's a lot of furniture. So we have an entire team dedicated to sorting through that this week and getting rooms set up as they need to be and getting rid of any furniture that doesn't need to be in that campus. And then the next phase that we'll be working on here is the original 1999 athletic portions of that school. That'll take place during the year, and then we'll follow that with the fine arts renovation next summer. Flower Mound High School, very similar. I'll go through these pretty quick. Main hallway images, very similar to Hebron. You see the same new lighting, kind of looking down. Their cafeteria, and finally their science labs. So the science labs at Flower Mound were done this summer, whereas Hebron they were the summer before. And then I don't have an image of all the flooring, but I just included one school. We did 4 campuses. This is just Shadow Ridge Middle School, just a couple of images. I think they look great. The new carpet in the library, the LVT at the front of the library, the high circulation, the high traffic area. Now this is a post-wax image, just so y'all see. They actually do get shiny. This looks great. This is the band hall. And then the cafeteria. Again, flooring just looks fantastic in there. Heritage re-roof. We got some drone shots. I felt bad if we didn't include. They went up and flew these things. So this is not super exciting, but just a couple of images to show phasing that you can tell which areas they're working on and which are complete. The white are complete. Just a couple of images there. Homestead Playground. We did 2 playgrounds this summer, one at Wellington, one at Homestead. They look very similar. This image right here is a great way to kind of describe, a lot of times we talk about leaving the existing shade structure and installing the new playground underneath it. This just shows just that. So one thing you have to keep in mind is a lot of times the taller parts of the playground, the slides, they're taller than that shade structure. So we end up covering as much as we can. Usually ends up being the kind of the entrance, the ramps, and the low play areas on the playground. There's the new swings, obviously new 5-bar and borders around there, and then the new slides, the fun part right there. Well, this actually looks pretty fun right here too. Stadium turf. So stadium turf at a high school is a big endeavor in itself. We took on the challenge of doing 3 of those high schools this summer. Here's an image of Flower Mound, an image of Hebron, and here's the Colony. So if you remember, the Colony's a little bit further behind. If you remember, at the last board meeting, we accepted the change order to raise the level of the playing field to the track. That leveling has been done, so now they're just finishing up the turf there. Again, we talked about at that meeting that the estimated completion date was the 15th of August, and we're trying to improve on that, but right now you can see the kind of progress there. And then middle school tracks, again, had a neat drone shot. This is not an super exciting one, but just to kind of show a brand new, fresh middle school track. This is Creek Valley Middle School. And with that, I'll answer any questions you have as far as the construction update.
Mrs. Prosnick.
Do you want all my questions, Mr. Miller, or do you just want
Yep.
a couple at a time?
Stack them on.
Stack them up. All right. So I noticed that we have a shade structure at Memorial Elementary.
Yes.
That was not in the ad specs. So I'm curious how that came to be.
Correct. Yeah, so, there's been a lot of talk about, the next bond and what our plans are. So it was decided to go ahead and put that one in at Memorial now and not have to come back to a brand new school and put that one back in. But
So have we changed ed specs?
Yeah, so really one of the discussions that we had when we discussed it, Ms. Prosnick, is, the issue of we need to discuss changing the ed specs because the haves and the have-nots have them. And I know we've discussed this as a board. And so it just didn't make sense to build a brand-new school, elementary school, and not put it. One of the discussions that we'll have is, whether or not to earmark some money in the future for, and it's a complicated issue as far as existing campuses because you got to find out how long they've been there, what's the rotation, who paid for it initially, but it just didn't make sense to build this school and not put a shade structure there. So, yeah, I guess I'll take the blame for that we did modify the ed spec for this campus with the hope that we would discuss that as a group in the future.
So then that comes to my question for 20-year refreshers, which to me seems like the natural time for a school who does not have a sunshade. So I guess I feel really bad for the schools who don't have sunshades that we've done in the last year or two, because we've been discussing this for 2 years. So,
yeah, I don't disagree that we absolutely, had to. We've been discussing it for 2 years, and for this project, it's like, okay, let's move forward, and then circle back around. The same thing that we need to circle back around with some 20-year refreshes we provided furniture for, and some we haven't. So we've got to figure out what our answer is going to be as a group, but I don't disagree at all with that.
and then no one can say you weren't busy this summer, because you all certainly were, and I appreciate all the work. My other question is, we've now replaced all the turf at all the high schools. We did
Yes.
Marcus and Lewisville
Yes, ma'am.
a year ago. So, and that is according to you, that's a 7 to 9 year life, correct?
Yes, I believe so. 8 year, I think, is the turf.
Okay. So I'm just trying to
Right.
think ahead. And then the furniture the furniture and the refresh at Bridalwood, how much of that was budgeted STEM money and how much of that was their refresh? Did we do it that way, or did we just include it in the refresh?
We did, excuse me, we did the same thing we did with the other STEM academies. I think it was a $500,000 pull from the academy budget for that portion. And so that pays for as much as it can. I mean, it generally works out about, $500,000-600,000, but it's, in that range, and the rest is, just part of the 20 refresh. Because there's always that fine line on, if you're going to be in a room anyway and painting and doing flooring and all those things, where do you draw the line as far as, well, this is STEM and this is 20 refresh. So, but that's been the way we've done all of them so far. I think it's been pretty successful.
And since you put the windows in for the library because of sound issues, apparently I'm hearing that may have come from some of our other STEM academies, are we going to have to go back and fix that at the other STEM academies? And did we do that at, I know
No.
I haven't had the privilege of going to Memorial yet, and so I don't know what that library looks like.
Right. It's wide open.
It's
So-
wide open.
And so one thing to keep in mind, too, is the Bridalwood is the first one that is we have the different prototypes. We have the different prototypes. And so we did Valley Ridge and Donald and Polzer. Those were all the same kind of style, where the library, as soon as you walk in the front door, the library is in the middle of the building. Bridalwood is different, and so it's kind of on the side. This one has that angled, that rounded hallway where you kind of go both sides. And so it was a different design anyway. I mean, really, it was kind of just all the STEM groups, and I was talking through how we approached that library media center with a different design. Memorial is wide open. That was a huge design element when it was designed. I mean, for that to be just a big, open, flexible kind of space there. But the good news there is the classroom wings are pretty. I don't think you'll get a lot of spillover of noise from the library into the classroom wings just because of the way they're designed. But yeah, I think that.
Yeah, Ms. Prosnick, let me be clear. My plan is not to go back and add glass. So,
I'm just trying to take some things off some people's wish lists. But no, I appreciate the work. I appreciate all the hard work. I will ask, when did we know about the stoplight at Memorial? When did the city decide that that needed to happen? Just because, I mean, it just seems to be something that got,
No, it's a great question.
Add it
So
on.
we knew in the permit process. So in the very beginning, they required a traffic study. That traffic study determined a few things. One is the decel lanes, the median cuts, and that it needed a traffic signal. So those things I just mentioned all had to be put into place before you could start that traffic signal. Because I had the same questions, like, hey, we are at the very end, and we're waiting on the signal. It's just a sequence of construction, right? So you can't start those decel lanes and that median cut until the site is ready for that, and then you start all that concrete work. Once that's complete, now you start the foundation work for the traffic signal and the underground electrical, which that was a whole. The subcontractor, like I said, this is my first one, and this subcontractor, that's all they do is traffic signals, and so they have a very, set method of how they approach it, but. To answer your question, it's just simply a sequence of things that had to happen before that could begin over there.
thank you.
And with that, the concrete allocation and the
Yeah.
weather affected the concrete work.
Concrete allocation's a very unique.
It's really weird.
It's very unique to,
Yeah.
I used to.
I haven't either.
construction, as you know. That's a very unique thing that I've never quite seen. And I think it's just because they were selling, they couldn't make enough concrete.
Right.
It's my own
I
personal.
agree.
Mrs. Sells?
Yes, I have a couple of things. Just wanted to make sure that the temporary lockers are lockable, just as a
Yes.
permanent locker would be for the security of
Yes,
those
ma'am.
kids-
If they're not,
those
we're
students.
going through and making repairs. But yeah, we made sure to choose lockers that were in decent shape and that were usable, functional.
Okay. And then the acoustic wall panels, are those in the fine arts areas, or are they throughout?
Both. So at Huffines and DeLay, that's a fine arts renovation. They're definitely in the fine arts area. At Prairie Trail and Bridlewood, they're in the cafeteria. So a lot of cafeterias you'll see, just like in here, you'll see the little band of,
Right.
just makes it a little less noisy in the room. Just
Okay.
kind of sound deadening.
Okay, just wanted to know which areas of those affected. And then the landscaping that did not survive, is the dead landscaping being left in place until replacements, or are we clearing out things and then replacing at some point in time? And Dr. Rogers and I did talk about this and talked about going to a more kind of,
Hardy.
yes, hardy and
Yeah.
things, so.
We're, of course, that's Jason Hughes' group, and of course, most of that, as Randy talked about, is contracted out, which poses some problems, not only with getting the vegetation, but then finding crews to plant it. But our goal is to focus on the front entries first, and then we'll circle back around with other areas. And, as you see out in front of this building, I've informed Jason to focus as much as possible on native plants to where hopefully we won't experience what we did in February.
And
But
so are we using that same policy for the landscape at Memorial? So we're only doing the entry there, or are we going to do everything there?
yeah, I can't speak to Memorial, but I think it's, if you go by a lot of our newer schools, a lot of them have sort of used more native, but I can't speak to Memorial.
Yeah, I mean,
I was really.
We didn't really alter the landscaping design based on that aspect of the freeze. It was what was originally planned there. But yeah, like Dr. Rogers mentioned, a lot of what we're putting in now is more, is more native type stuff.
And I did drive by a couple of campuses that had the native, and it is flourishing. I mean, it looks good. It looks like it wasn't affected, even though there were some shrub-type things, which I didn't think there would be. All the grasses looked healthy, and even the shrubs must have been something different than a lot of people had at their homes.
Yeah,
So,
those Indian hawthorns that really
Yeah.
just died everywhere.
yeah. Okay. The traffic signal is a 3-color light, correct?
Yes. Yeah,
Will
standard.
do we know operation? Will that be operated fully now? Because people, people on social media are going to be mad
Yes.
that they've got to stop there now because that is a raceway
Yes.
from 544 to,
Right.
to, yeah.
Great point. So yes, it's a normal traffic signal. I mean, it's on a major road there. It will be fully operational, and right now there's message boards if you drive down Josie Lane that state that the traffic signal is coming and that the school zone is coming. That's even a bigger one. Is if you usually drive down that street, now you're going to have to slow down starting August 11th, and that's going to be new to everybody. So those message boards are out now when you drive down there.
Perfect, okay. And CoServe is on standby, or is that something that we have to request a work order for, and then there's a delay?
Absolutely. It's a whole permit application, and then you request with CoServe, they send it to their construction department. All that's happened. So we're on the list now. They're ready to, it's supposed to happen this week.
Okay.
Again, everybody I talk to says, yes, we're on it. Yeah, it's going to be this week. And so, but just in case, we do have a plan B, because I've never run into this before, and I don't want that to cause us not to have school there. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Perfect. And then at LHS, that entry there where one side is the home and one is the visitor, is there fencing
Yes.
then once you go through to separate so that people don't visitor and just jump over to home and that sort of stuff?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I
Yeah.
couldn't see it in the
Not
picture.
in there, not in the picture yet. There's still
Okay.
work to be done on that entryway there, but
Okay.
kinda
I
gives you
thought
an
it
idea.
was in something that you had presented to us
Right.
before, but I didn't see it. And the wrestlers, are they being accommodated if they're
Yes.
training until the 20th in a different location?
Yes, and the trainers, absolutely. We work hand in hand with the campus, and that's been throughout the entire project, because as you can imagine, we had to tear a lot of those buildings down during the year, so we've done a lot of shuffling out there with them. So they've been great to
Okay,
work
so
with.
they've been accommodated. And
Absolutely.
then the feeder pattern colors, I do like that. Will that continue
It
then?
pretty much has. We do a lot of neutrals, as you see. We get some complaints about that too, because it's an elementary school. There's not a lot of color. We try to bring the color into furniture and things that are put on the walls, not permanent. Yeah, we have been doing the feeder pattern colors for a while on schools, and Jason's group has been too, as they go through and they refresh campuses.
Okay. And then just a couple more. Hebron, did the furniture
Where'd it come from?
multiply? Yeah.
So-
I mean, what point do we have an overabundance, and where was it?
So I asked the same question, and I think a lot of furniture was brought in. COVID affected a lot, right? So I know when COVID first hit, out there they selected to remove desks from classrooms and put them in connexes outside of the building. So we've had connexes full of furniture outside that school for over a year now. We're just now starting to bring all that furniture back in, and there was additional furniture that was asked for, and I don't know, honestly, where all of it came from, but we're trying to sort through that now, shake it all out, and see what all is needed.
And will that's usable go back into warehouse
Yes.
for distribution if it can be used elsewhere?
Absolutely. So our district standard is, there's a whole team that determines if it still has value. If it's just trash, right, there's forms that are filled out and it's disposed of. But for the most part, if there's still value left, it goes to the warehouse, and it'll either be reused by other folks in the district or could be auctioned off eventually for anybody to purchase.
Okay. And then just one last thing. I love the new lighting. Are they energy efficient? We've won awards for that. I don't want to lose that. The new, like...
Circles? Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything we install now is all LED, so everything's the energy efficient.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Sure.
That's it. Sorry.
Mrs. Lasan.
Well, you guys have been crazy, crazy busy, and it's very exciting, and I really am looking forward to getting out there and looking at a lot of it, especially the new elementary school. That'll be fun. So that's the only question I had is, and I don't know if Mr. Colbeck wants to speak to it at all, but about the data center at Memorial. How's that going? Is it up and running? When will it be? That kind of thing.
You go ahead. Oh, construction side. So the space is ready. Flooring, the raised flooring's installed. The racks are there. The data center itself is not operational yet. I don't know if you want to speak to the.
Yeah, we're waiting for some equipment that we have an application in for E-rate funding. So we're hoping at some point we're going to get the green light to order or to receive that. The fiber connections, everything going to that particular facility, they're ready. We just need the equipment. The equipment needed to run the building, that's there and obviously needed for occupancy. But it's, as far as the network side to bring up the ring, that's the part we're really waiting on.
Mrs. Hassett.
Thank you for all the work that y'all have done.
Sure.
An outstanding job in this crazy condition that we have.
Thank you.
Really, just one question, the delay in the furniture, and is it just classroom desks? Is it teacher desks too? Is it bookcases? What are we waiting for? How much can we let teachers put their stuff into the classrooms, and how much do they have to hold back?
It's a little bit of everything. And I'll have to pull up the list here. So student desks, some chairs, kidney tables, which are, just like the little kidney tables in the classroom. Again, student desks.
Can teachers set up their classroom and not have to take it out?
Yes. There's nothing, everything pretty much revolved around either student desk or teacher chairs, pretty much. So I don't think there'll be any issues with, like you say, having to load up a bookcase or a cabinet or whatever and then have to take all that back out again. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Mrs. Cox.
Okay, yes, as Ms. Sells, to reiterate, I love the feeder pattern colors. That looks fantastic.
Good. A lot better than the pinks and purples.
Yeah, it gets ready for football season. I love it.
Right.
So my question is on the transition of when the supplies come in, the lockers, what does that look like? Is that a weekend project? I sure wouldn't want them in during the day.
Right.
I mean, how is that going to happen?
So we always target either Thanksgiving or Christmas time. Obviously, those are the two biggest breaks. But if there is something that's able to be done during a weekend, we'll certainly try that. We typically don't ever do that when it affects like you mentioned, a classroom, a teacher that would have to prepare for that. We don't want to. So like the tack wall in the classrooms, Thanksgiving is the goal. If they come back to us and they say we just can't do it all in 1 week, then we'll push that to Christmas. But to answer your question, we always. Once we get a confirmed final date and we know we have it in hand, we always work with the campus to find the best time for them to get that in there.
And then, I have to ask, but what does our costs look like? Are we in budget on all of these with these increased and challenges that we've had?
Yes, so all the projects that we went over tonight were in budget, right? So we have that guaranteed maximum price, and that was good. We had those set back when things were normal. Unfortunately, I've got several items tonight I'm going to be talking about where that's not the case. So yeah, but everything, all the construction you saw, yes, we don't have. I'm not coming back and asking for change orders for the jobs that you saw. Right.
Okay, my last question is, I guess, Mr. Miller, is for you to allude to what Ms. Prosnick asked, is would this be something we should add for the ed specs? I mean, I don't know how often we should be discussing them, Dr. Rogers, and if so, could we put them in rotation just like we do our programs and start adding them in a rotation period?
So I think it's a great point. I was actually going to bring this up after Dr. Bonner, but yes, we will do that. Dr. Bonner is going to lead, as you know, as part of our audit, and Gibson's here putting together a 5-year plan. Dr. Bonner is going to lead that for us. I was just going to recommend that we put ed specs up in the front of that. As a matter of fact, one of the next audits that we're performing, as you recall, is facilities, and so the timing would be good, kind of a symbiotic, part of our 5-year plan up front, do the facilities, look at those ed specs again, and then we'll get moving on it.
And Ms. Cox, a great question. The other thing is, we are looking to schedule a meeting sometime in the near future with the board to discuss how y'all want to use some of the proceeds from some of the real estate. And, we've talked about shade covers. We've talked about, new furniture for these projects that didn't have it. For instance, if you wanted to replace all new furniture in a Flower Mound or Hebron High School, it's about $20,000 a classroom. There's 150 classrooms, so it's about $3 million per high school just for the furniture. So, but those are the kind of things that absolutely, along with the ed specs, the board needs to discuss. I promise you, we've been discussing it.
What does that look like? I mean, what does a typical, I don't know, at 5 years you review ed specs. I mean, what is, do you know what typical is for that? I'm not sure.
So, when this came up with the fine arts study that we brought, I think the thinking was we could maybe take it in chunks, right? So, like, now we focus on fine arts right now, and then athletics next, and then career center, and bring it in front of y'all a piece at a time, and just kind of go through the rotation, right? Because I think over time they probably will still continue to evolve. I mean, they've already evolved since 2016 when they were put in place. But that's just my thought.
There wasn't really an answer. I mean, is there a time frame? I mean, is it a 2-year? I mean, is there
To begin that process?
Yeah, I mean, no, like for ed specs, like you should probably review them every 5 years, or is there a time frame, or no, you just kind of evaluate as you see changes in the industry or whatever?
Right. I mean, I think it would probably be more of an ongoing process, but we could, it's open to input.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. We're, having gone through the last bond, we got a little more sophisticated with the specs. I think you guys have done a great job in adhering to those, and certainly appreciate the fact that you've got to call audibles on those. But we probably should consult in our audit, which will start probably in September, I can't remember. We can consult with the company that's providing those services and get some best practices from them. Thank you for bringing that up. Dr. Bonner.
Randy, I'd just like to thank you for the extensive information you always share, and of course the work to get to that point. Big important question, when are we going to get to tour Memorial Elementary School?
Just let me know, we'll get you in there.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, absolutely.
So these two just took a couple things off my list, but one is we need to schedule the tours. We'll work on that with Dr. Rogers and his staff. I think there's a number of campuses we'd probably like to tour as a board. As a reminder, if board members want to tour campus, they can send a note to Dr. Rogers and I, and we'll try and give other board members an opportunity to visit. But there are some campuses probably it'd be good if all 7 of us have an opportunity to visit. Memorial would be one of those. I think we are scheduled to be at Bridlewood for the ribbon cutting on the 11th. Is that correct? It's Memorial.
Yeah, there's red, what are we calling them?
Central's red carpet.
Red carpet. But anyway, it's really just that welcome, that special welcome. It's not really a ribbon cutting like we'll have at a different time.
Okay.
That's not scheduled.
Okay, so that's really
Will be.
my question is scheduling ribbon cuttings as appropriate, and as well as the tours. I think the Ms. Cox raised the question on the facilities issues, and then we'll start to address that in the 5-year plan. And Dr. Bonner will be joining the audit committee, so it'll kind of all fit together. So thank you, Randy. There's a lot of work. Thank the team for us. And the good news is we're getting into school on time this year, and we're also going to be in school. So some exciting stuff, and things look really good. I think there are a lot of people that are very happy that some of the campus colors changed. I mean, I think of some of those colors back that my mom had in the 70s, like the mauve colors and stuff like that. Made me think of that. Some of which is still at Disney World hotels, by the way. So thank you for changing all that, and it looks really good.
Thank you. Okay.
You're up.
All right.
Just real quick,
Oh.
just a little bit off the topic, but you just made me think of something. So maybe Jamie or someone it would be nice that we have representation at all 3 of those campuses. And I'm happy to pivot or to go to another campus if I need to, but I don't know who's going where, I guess.
Yeah, we'll reach out and get you scheduled.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so the first, I've got a few GMPs tonight. The first one is the guaranteed maximum price for the distribution center renovations project. So with all of these tonight, the guaranteed maximum price process was presented to the board in an information item at the February 12, 2018 board meeting. So with this one, the distribution center renovations project has been advertised and competitively bid to subcontractors by Poe Construction, who is the construction manager at risk firm. The subcontractor bids have been evaluated and scoped for the project. Poe Construction has presented a total guaranteed maximum price of $239,913. That pricing represents the best value to the district. It is within budget. This item will be on the consent agenda next Monday night. And just a little bit about this project. This was some minor renovations, obviously for $239,000, you're not doing a lot, right? But it's some minor renovation scope to outfit the existing facility services warehouse side of that bus barn building for transportation's use. If you remember, the facility services distribution center is moving to Del Jackson, which allowed this space to open up. We have worked with Jeremy Turner to develop the scope and the design. And the estimated schedule would be to start on around September 1st and be substantially complete by the end of the year. So with that, I'll answer any questions you may have on this one.
Are there any questions?
My only question is, that's a really long time to do renovations from September to May. You said begin on September 1st and be finished end of the, okay.
Excuse me.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. End of the calendar year, I'm sorry.
Thanks,
Is
Randy.
that all? Okay. Okay, so the next one, excuse me, guaranteed maximum price for the new district parking lots project phase 2. Again, the district parking lots project phase 2 has been advertised and competitively bid to subcontractors by Poe Construction. They've been evaluated and scoped, and they have provided a guaranteed maximum price of $733,899. If you remember, this project was not originally included in the 2017 bond package. Phase 1, which we talked about earlier at Central Elementary, we've been using, is underway now, is wrapping up now. We used bond interest earnings for that, and the intent was to use bond interest earnings for this as well. This will be a consent item next Monday night. The estimated schedule would be to start September 1st and be complete around the end of November. That's about a 3-month duration. Now that is pending all city approvals. This actually is going through P&Z and permit processes and all that. So let me, if I could, I want to show a slide of what we're looking at here. So this plan here in white, you'll see in the center of the image is the building and the existing parking lot. The existing had 218 parking spaces. The blue areas are what we're adding. That gets us up to 310 spaces. If you'll look up, I'll show you on this image here. If you look at this thick black line here, that's our property line. So you can see we really try to maximize the amount of available space there, put as much parking as possible. We also, with this project, are putting a new entry and exit onto I think it's Trailview Drive, I believe is the name. Yes, Trailview Drive. Currently, there's only one entrance and exit off of Memorial Drive. So with that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
How's this affected with the concrete allotments?
Yeah, so I double-checked with Pogue again today when I was talking about durations. They think they should be able to get it done within that 3-month period. I mean, with this scope of work. Now, there's a little bit of time contingency in there because of those allocations. But again, if we don't hit that end of November mark, I mean, there's really no. I mean, we're not affecting any operation of the building. Obviously, we want to get this done on time, but they still feel confident about it.
Ms. Lassonde?
And so these two projects are in the city of Lewisville and the city of the Colony, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so their permitting processes aren't as long as some of our other municipalities, possibly?
Right. Well, this one here, because, again, it has to go through planning and zoning, there's a little bit of extra time there in the
Okay.
Colony.
But you are absolutely right.
Yes.
I was making a little point here.
Right.
Are we redoing the whole parking lot or just
No, ma'am.
the blue?
Just the blue. Yes, ma'am.
Just
Just
the
adding.
Okay.
The only area that'll be kind of redoing, so there's this area here will obviously be, cutting in to where, because the existing parking lot just goes straight across here. Does that make sense?
We could move some of that landscape to another
Right.
facility.
Right.
Mrs. Cox?
I just want to make sure this won't cause any disruption with drop-off and pickups and delay any of that.
No, I think because it's on the back side of the site, I mean, we've asked Pogue that question as well. They feel like we can get this done. We can stage in an area that won't impact the facility. They're fully aware that this facility has to be operational during the construction.
Mrs. Sells?
Yes, you may not know the answer to this because this may fall on the cities. Are neighbors, are they notified of these changes? Because if I was that neighborhood, I'd want to be aware before I would like their verification that there's been notification
Yeah,
to
so
that neighborhood.
I don't, so typically you're going to be notified if there's like a zoning change request or something like that. If an existing property owner is making modifications to their property, I don't know that notifications are sent out to those neighbors. I think the biggest impact will be just during construction, right? So a concrete pour, we always hear complaints about the beeping, the reverse, the trucks backing up and beeping, just the noise and everything. But that'll be the biggest issue, I think.
So do we have signs that we're putting out there that construction is happening?
We can certainly put something out there, sure.
Thanks, Randy. Next
Sure.
item.
Yeah, that's all I have on that one.
That's all you have?
No.
That's what I'm
Okay.
saying. Next item.
So the next three, if I could, they're sort of related, right? Because I want to talk holistically about the approach. So I don't know if President Miller, do you want me to go ahead and go through all three at
Yes.
one time, and then we'll
Yes.
do a discussion after? Okay. So the first one is guarantee maximum price for the Year 4 middle school fine arts additions and renovations at Creek Valley and Durham Middle School. So these have been bid out and competitively bid to subcontractors by Jackson Construction. Those bids have been evaluated and scoped, and they have provided a guaranteed maximum price of $6,658,338. If these projects are over in budget, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, and it was also discussed at the April 6th, 2021 board work session that we anticipated that, right? So funding for this project is provided by the bond, but the overage we would recommend covering with other 2017 bond project savings, which again, I've got a whole slide to go through. It's important to note that the Year 4 middle school fine arts actually had 3 campuses. The third is Lamar. So you will be seeing Lamar Middle School and Flower Mound High School fine arts at the October. Our plan is for the October board meeting. So those two are currently in the bidding process, and we don't have those numbers yet. There are no storm shelters with Creek Valley and Durham. There will be with Lamar. So the overage here really stems from those ed spec changes that we talked about, making sure the scope is right and accurate in what they need, and the material cost increases that we've been experiencing. So the next one is Hebron High School, Fine Arts Additions and Renovations, and Black Box Theater Addition. This project has been advertised and bid to subcontractors by Jackson Construction as well. Those have been scoped and evaluated, and they presented a GMP of $9,857,187. Again, this project is over the budget. We'll talk about that in a moment. This project does include a storm shelter, so that's an important key to remember. The Hebron High School Black Box Theater Addition essentially is a storm shelter. It will have restrooms in the Black Box Theater space. And know that storm shelter will not house the entire campus. Let me show you a couple of images real quick, just since I have them, of the just kind of renderings. So the area of the building this attaches to, if you've been to any performance in the existing auditorium, this basically attaches right to that auditorium here. And it really provides us, there's a daytime image and nighttime image. You'll see a lot of site work. We have to do a lot of ramp, a lot of site work with a lot of fall in the site right there. And then it really provides us with kind of a new entry lobby type space to that entire area. Okay, and my last one is, of these, I've still got one more, is Lewisville High School Fine Arts Additions and Renovations. This has been advertised and bid to subcontractors by Poe Construction. Subcontractor bids have been evaluated and scoped, and they have provided a GMP of $3,790,901. Again, this project is over budget, and there is no storm shelter at LHS. So, with that, let me get into these slides. So, talking about the fine arts budget overages. So, a lot of words on this sheet, and I can't really see my page any better. But so all 3 projects are listed on here. The Hebron High School Fine Arts Additions and Black Box, again, has a storm shelter. The original overall budget was $7.9 million. Of that, the original construction cost budget, and I'll get into this in a minute. Really, there's two components to the overall budget. You have the construction cost, which turns into the GMP, and then you have soft costs. Those two elements are what make up your overall project budget. So the original construction cost budget, which is what was available for the GMP, was $7 million. So the GMP actually came in at 9.86. So the overage needed here, both for the GMP and the soft cost, is $2.9 million for Hebron. LHS Fine Arts additions and renovations, again, overall budget 2.4. Of that, $2 million was for the GMP. The GMP came in at 3.8. The overage needed here is 1.8. And then the year 4, this one gets a little confusing because I have estimates for Lamar in here, but the year 4 middle school fine arts, it was one overall budget for all 3 campuses of $5.2 million. Of that, $4 million was for the GMPs. The GMP, using the Lamar cost estimate, as well as the 2 actual GMPs we have here tonight, was going to run around 11.3. So the overage that we'll need is approximately $7.35 million. 4.6 of that will be for Lamar that we'll discuss in October. So tonight, we're discussing $2.75 million needed for Durham and Creek Valley. So altogether combined, the total additional money we need is $7.45 million. And again, I have a note at the bottom that Flower Mound and Lamar will talk about later. So here, this is just a list of some available funds from project savings, just from a group of projects. So we have Tech West, $1.69 million available. Holzer, $500,000. Marcus, $400,000. Hedrick, $2.1. Hebron Multipurpose ISC, $1.4. And the security vestibule is $1.35. So we have available, just with these projects here, $7.49 million, which would cover the overage needed for these fine arts projects. So the big question, how can you have projects that have those kinds of savings? You got $1 million here, $2 million here. So great question. Again, remember that you have an overall budget for a project, right? Within that overall budget, you have an estimated amount for the GMP, and you have soft cost, okay? Soft costs are things such as architect fees, general reimbursable costs, which are like printing and ADA inspections, things like that. Third-party air monitoring for abatement, if needed. We do building commissioning on all of our projects. We do geotech and materials testing on projects. Furniture design fees, which is an ad service that's not part of the basic design service. FF&E, this is a big one. So we budget for furniture for campuses. Landscape design, storm shelter peer review, which is a code requirement. So like on Hebron High School Black Box Theater, Stantec will have to actually have a third party review their design and ensure that that storm shelter will meet the ICC 500 code requirements. That's a code requirement to do that. Technology needs, non-consumables. There's a whole bunch of things that have to be purchased, as well as just the GMP, just the construction costs. So with those projects I listed, many of the project GMPs came in well below that initial construction cost budget, right? So when we brought Hedrick Middle School, like tonight when I brought the distribution center GMP, I said we're under budget. We're within the budget. So that means there's a savings there, right? So when we brought Hedrick Middle School, the bid was great. The pricing was really good. We came in under that construction cost budget. Also, many of these projects, as you know, have had leftover project contingency funds that resulted in money coming back. So an example, Tech West that we brought back a couple of months ago had almost $1 million that we brought back. So that's a big portion of that savings from Tech West. Security vestibules, when we brought that back to the board for closeout, it had $1.2 million of savings in it. And then Polzer had 400. So you kind of get the idea. Additionally, architect fees are percentage based. So let's think about Tech West example for a minute. If we saved almost $1 million during the project on returning unused contingency funds, that architect fee goes down as well. Their final fee is based on the final construction costs, so they get less, right? So there's savings there that we had to earmark in the beginning. You have to budget for that. And then finally, there are often savings in other cost categories. So, we do the best we can to budget for furniture or for materials testing, and sometimes we don't end up using all of that. And so you could potentially have some savings in any of those categories that I went through. So hopefully that explains a little bit about the savings that we do have in hand and the opportunity that we might have to use that to cover some of these overages, should you see that be the best approach.
Okay, I'm sure this is going to bring some questions, so we're going to do it in kind of a disciplined way. Ms. Sells will go first, but just as a reminder,
Okay.
this is a procurement methodology, it's a guaranteed maximum price, so what you put on the table is the maximum that we would be spending.
Yes.
We're grateful that you guys were able to save a lot of money and find savings in those other projects, and so if we were to be consistent with that, it's likely we'll find some savings in these future projects. But in the current climate that we're in, this is where the GMPs are coming in based on what they expect with costs, materials, labor, et cetera. Some of the shortages we've discussed,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
you hit it on the head, right?
Okay,
there. Yep.
Mrs. Sells.
I think for me, knowing that we had overages of others, is it possible that even if we were to okay this, that there would be some overage that we wouldn't use the entire amount? Or are we at the point that you may come back and that may not be enough? I think that's a question.
Not sure. So if I understand the question, the list of projects here, are you saying there's
Well,
a potential?
we had overages on those projects.
These are savings.
I mean, savings.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
savings. Is there a possibility that then there would be savings once those funds are then
Sure.
put to these projects?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, we're always going to include a contingency amount in the project for any unforeseen. You never know what you're going to, on any construction project, what you're going to run into. So there's always a potential that you don't have to use all that contingency and you're going to have that returned back to the district, which is a great thing. So yes, absolutely, there's certainly a potential for some savings to come back, even on the back end of these projects.
Okay. I just thank you for the presentation and
Sure.
just how it went from step to step. I appreciate it.
Okay, sure.
Ms. Lasan.
Could you go back one slide where you, the busy slide, okay.
Yeah.
So explain why we need a storm shelter in Hebron versus Lewisville.
Great question.
I may know the answer, but I just, for the.
So it comes
everybody-
down to a few things. One is each municipality's interpretation of that code, right? But it also comes, there are certain requirements for a storm shelter. Occupancy is one. So depending on what that space is used for, if it's under a certain number of occupants, you don't have to have a storm shelter. The Lewisville High School ancillary, the athletics renovation, we were over that threshold, so we had to provide a storm shelter there. This fine arts is, you're basically going to pick, a band hall or a choir or a orchestra, and those numbers are below that threshold, so no shelter is required there. A black box theater has an audience, so you have people that come in to watch, so now you're over that threshold. Does that,
Okay.
hope that answers a little bit.
That does, when you think about the possibility of an audience, that makes it a little bit more. Okay.
And like I say, each municipality interprets this a little different. This is, this code was really 2015 was when it really started taking off. But there's been a lot of studies and iterations and things done. But every municipality views it a little bit different.
Okay.
So, and going into the next bond, we'll be more armed with. We didn't really plan for a lot of these storm shelters with this bond. We didn't know all the requirements back then.
And Carrollton, they interpreted very strictly, which is why we had to actually do a storm shelter even for the IEC, right? I mean, or for,
Yes.
yeah, so.
Okay, and that's, there's not much we can do about that, and that's what, adding a couple million to the cost?
Right. Yeah. It's not all attributed to that, but that's certainly a factor, right?
Sure.
So, there's the ed specs and material costs. It's a threefold recipe.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Ms. Hassett.
Why is fine arts the two, Creek Valley and Durham, 2.7 if the black box at Hebron and the fine arts edition is 2.9? Because the storm shelters cost a gajillion dollars, technically.
Okay. Great question. So, if you remember when we had the discussion about the fine arts renovations and how we didn't budget, excuse me, if you had an addition and we only budgeted 2,000 square feet for a renovation, You end up renovating 6,000 square feet. So that was the big bust, right, on the middle school fine arts.
Okay.
On the black box theater, that was from the get-go designed or thought of as a brand-new build. And so we had a lot more budget in place for that because we knew it was going to be a brand-new, brand-new building. Does that help answer a little
Yes,
bit?
but it's, with the Black Box Theater and Hebron High School Fine Arts at 2.9 over,
Right.
and just two middle school, not including Lamar, at 2.75, what is causing the most increases in these overages?
Again, I don't really have the breakout between those three different areas, especially since the construction cost issue is just so new. But it is all three of those things. The scope is definitely different than what we
Okay, it's just that
planned
the Hebron Black Box and Storm Shelter versus the Lamar is going to need, what was it, 4?
Yes.
4.6?
Right. So again, Lamar was only budgeted for a
Without-
very small addition and a
Right.
very small renovation.
Right, so
And
the Storm Shelter, of course,
This
increases
is a huge
that.
impact.
Right.
Huge impact on Lamar.
It just doesn't seem like Hebron's is as big of an impact with their storm shelter,
Right,
which is peculiar.
Right.
Not that I want to pay more for it.
right.
I guess that's all.
Ms. Hassett needs a cost analysis breakdown, please. Yes, that's what she would like.
Right.
No, I'm very appreciative. No one likes to pay extra money. I sure don't. But we all knew this was coming. I've been waiting for it. That's why I ask it at every meeting,
Sure.
basically, our UN budget and all that. I'm very appreciative of the savings that you have. And to kind of what Ms. Sells said earlier, the costs are supposed to be going down, hopefully at some point in time. We don't know if it'll be within our time frame, but, maybe wishful thinking, we might have some savings. But
Right.
I'm very
Right.
appreciative of that. My question is more for Matt, and I don't know if he's in the room or where he is what kind of security are we having in this black box so that we can be watching our students and making sure we're watching them on the campus and the black box areas and on the additions? What kind of security do we have?
I mean, for what I can speak to is we provide this, the security camera system, the same systems that we provide on all the campuses. I'm not sure if there's a different protocol or not for this type of area. I know Matt's not.
Could
here,
we, Matt's tied up at the moment.
Yeah.
Could we
Come
get
back.
back to you on that,
Absolutely.
Doctor?
That'd
Unless
be
you have
great.
an answer, Dr. Rogers?
No, I'll bring it up to Mr. Garrett, and I understand your concern, so.
Dr. Bonner?
Yeah, I have just a couple. So, being late to the board, I may be asking a really obvious question. I apologize if I am, but
Sure.
with adding black box and fine arts editions, we're getting to an equivalency, right? We're not putting something at one high school that we're not having at other high schools, correct?
Correct.
So that's we're all even now. Is that correct? Or getting closer?
That's correct. Yeah, we're currently finishing up the one at the Colony.
Right.
And Flower Mound and Marcus already had theirs, and Lewisville.
That's absolutely our goal.
Okay.
is,
Thank you for bringing me along.
If we can ever get to all even, that's
Nirvana.
really the question of the decade, probably.
Okay. And now my next question, Randy, is I'm going to ask you to look into the future.
Okay.
So we've got a cost overrun, but we can make it up through savings. If I'm the last campus that gets an improvement or an addition on the 2017 bond, am I going to be left in the lurch with no cost savings to accommodate a potential overrun? You follow where I'm going?
I do. If I had the full list of projects that we've worked on in this bond, it'd be a lot larger than this. So I didn't include. I basically got us to where we could cover that 7.45. Now these were our heavy hitters. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I don't have another $12 million sitting out there. That's why I was very careful on when y'all have asked before about the project savings and things. I really wanted to make sure we did our homework and made sure we were comfortable presenting these numbers. But yeah, to answer your question, there are other projects, and that we will be closing out stuff from this summer that hopefully will have savings as well.
So at the end, everybody's going to be happy.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Good.
I believe so.
Okay.
And we always have the original budgeted amount, which
Right.
should material cost increases and stuff start
Yeah,
to come
yeah.
down. Hopefully, we'll hit that target a little
Okay.
better.
Thank you.
Yeah, but Dr. Bonner, I will say that, when we discuss the next GMPs in October, I believe,
Yes.
we will have to have some serious discussions about some of the funds and how we're going to make up the cost overruns on those couple of projects.
Right.
And, we sort of set that stage back in April, not knowing, but, so we wanted to bring these and say, hey, we've got a way to cover these. We're going to have a little more serious discussions when we talk in October.
I guess that's my reason for asking the question,
Yeah.
is looking at it all in a global way rather than piecemeal.
Yes.
So, and I
Yeah.
figured Randy was doing that. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mrs. Prosnick.
To piggyback off on that, and Mr. Youngs can answer, we will also have some interest earned on the bonds as well. I do want to ask, because I went back and rewatched that April meeting where we went over all of that, and I do think this might answer some of the questions, is that Lamar Middle School is going to have an 11,000 square foot actual renovation. It was only scheduled to, when we did a 2,000 square foot. So that is where, when you look at that large, especially for Lamar, and the additional cost of so forth. I am going to ask you, because Hebron High School's was TBD in April, of what that square footage was going to be. So do you know what the square footage is going to be for the actual renovation? The actual addition was 4,276 square feet at that meeting, but the actual renovation was not listed in April, and I'm curious what that is.
I don't have it, but I can get that to you.
Okay, I'd appreciate it,
Yeah.
because that I think will also help
Right.
understand some of that.
And part of the reason for why it was TBD was because there was a lot of overlap between the 20-year refresh and this
Right,
renovation.
which
Well,
bucket of money,
and-
are you taking it from?
Exactly, right.
And it was also TBD because we were having discussions about the location of the choir, if you remember, and possibly moving them, and those discussions hadn't been finalized, moving them to the ninth grade campus. I think it was the choir, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, at that meeting, we were told 11.4 million, and by my very rudimentary, that we would be over 11.4 million, by my very rudimentary math, we're over 12 million
Yes.
with what you've given us. So
Right.
I'd like to know what happened between,
That's the environment, that's the bidding environment we're in now.
so
Yeah.
it's just, is it materials? Is it, I mean,
It's the competitive bidding market, so it's materials and labor, it's just what
Okay.
prices are going for. So when I brought the figures before you in April, those were purely from the CMER's cost estimating department. And so now we have the actual subs that put in their bids, and this is what it is. And so unfortunately, yes, we did go up.
so since we're looking at Lamar in October,
Yes, ma'am.
and once again, I know it's kind of like
Yeah.
Dr. Bonner, look in the future.
Right.
I mean, are we looking at that increasing as well?
Potentially, yes. I can't sit here and say no, that I'm confident in that number. It could potentially go up. I think that, Jackson has that one as well, and so they've obviously taken the actual hard numbers that they got from the first two, and they're applying those cost per square foot to this one. But, yeah, absolutely, it could fluctuate, unfortunately. So,
I mean, because that's a significant increase.
Yes.
I mean, and
Yep.
I'm not blaming
It
you
is.
for that increase. I'm just saying that that's a significant increase in less than 5 months.
Absolutely, yeah. I wasn't pleased with it either, but, yeah, that's
No one is.
kind of where we're at, yeah.
No one is. My other question on all this fun and frivolity is the soft costs that you talk about. Are they different between the are they different between the middle schools? I understand Lamar's is larger. I understand we have to do the storm shelter. But are those soft costs that different between the 3 middle school? You following me?
A little bit. So yes, there are. Every project has little differences. So like the architect fee for one, if the cost is higher, the architect fee is going to be higher, right? But you have things like materials testing. So if you have a storm shelter, the material testing requirements are going to be higher. We're going to spend a little bit more money for third-party material testing than you would if it didn't have that. Any of the ones that have an addition, you have to do the geotechnical aspect, where if you do a renovation only, you don't have to have that. So yeah, absolutely, there are differences between soft costs between every project.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Sure. Oh, and the air monitoring. So if nobody likes to talk about the A word, but if there is abatement in a building, we remove it. We abate that. We do a third-party air monitoring of that process to ensure that has been.
Are we expecting abatement?
I'm trying to remember on these specific projects. Yeah, maybe Lamar would be the only one. Yeah, because everything else is pretty much 90 and forward, so. Sure,
Thanks, Randy.
sure. All right, we got one more. You wanna preface this at all, or you want to get started? Okay, so this is the guaranteed maximum price for the Colony High School football press box replacement and fiber installation project included in the 2017 bond. So this has been advertised and competitively bid to subcontractors by North Star Builders. Subcontractors have been evaluated and scoped, and they have provided a GMP of $5,126,806. So I put in the administrative notes here that this brings the total project cost in at approximately 89% over the original budget. So, I got a slide.
Now I'll jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, after talking to Randy about the cost being 89%, we really, the colony still, we need to still build the multi-purpose facility for the colony, and so we would recommend to the board that we combine these two projects to get a better scope, and I actually believe that because of that economy of scale, it will help with the higher cost and also give us a little more wiggle room because they're working on a bigger project than just this one simple thing, which if you think about it, I think the cost of it's nearly double what we're paying for the LHS stadium. And it just really doesn't make sense. So that's our recommendation. We'll move forward with whatever you want to do, but we think we should package the two projects and do it then. And we have, I think, had initial conversations with or are we waiting until after tonight with the campus?
After tonight, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dr. Baxter.
Okay,
Yes.
Ms. Lazan?
And I would mention, we weren't planning on bringing this back as a consent item next week. Now, if we need to do that for some reason, we can certainly add it.
Mrs. Hassan?
Yeah, that's a lot. So, when, I'm assuming like the multi-purpose facility is set to be what, year 5? Is that where we are now? Year 5?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
project?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So that would be like what, next, you would start the bidding for that when?
So we haven't actually set the schedule for that yet. And
Okay.
I've been talking to Dr. Rogers about that, and there was no pressing need or no set end date where we needed it. But we brought that and had it approved for the architect to get started on design this fall.
Okay.
And the more time we can give design and more time we can give construction, as we learned on the Hebron multipurpose, it's going to take a certain amount of time. It'll help us, right? So I'll have more information about schedule as we move forward, but it wouldn't be for another year. So it would also give time for hopefully some of these cost increases to start to level off and hopefully come down a little bit.
Yeah.
Again, I don't have a crystal ball, but I can't imagine things continuing on the path they've been. But I didn't think we'd be here either. So
Hopefully not. Yeah, I definitely think we should wait and do that with the multipurpose facility.
okay.
Ms. Hassan?
And you won't have the schedule for us to make that determination for sure by next week?
I can get a rough schedule together, sure.
I think-
On timing of what that project would look
Yeah.
like? Sure, yeah, I can put something together.
I think it'd be very helpful.
Okay.
One thing that I would like to verify is probably Mr. Young's, that because we've already sold bonds for what would be this 5th year, we're not going to incur additional fees that we've normally built into. So that, normally we consider that when we're pushing off things.
That's correct. We've already got the bond money in the bank earning interest
So we're earning interest, so that
at a
helps
very low
mitigate
interest
a
rate.
very tiny bit.
Right.
Yeah, very low. Yeah, I mean, it's a large, I hate putting it off when other campuses have had their renovations. But this is probably just too large to do right now. Thank you.
Mrs. Cox?
I agree, it's not a good financial decision, but I would like Ms. Hassett's question as well. I would like that kind kind of a rough time frame.
Sure.
Dr. Bonner? Ms. Prosnick?
So what does this mean for North Star?
So I was waiting until this meeting to then find out from the legal aspect what that looks like. I mean, obviously, they have a contract with us for the one project, but I don't know that that necessarily means you can just award them the other one, right? So that's something that I have to track down, the legal aspects of that.
Because the way we save money was having the same contractor.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend having two, otherwise it's much more common. But yeah,
So
certainly.
will they both, so then will both of those projects, and maybe this is the legal, maybe I shift this way, will both of those projects then go back out for a GMP?
Or for the
construction manager at risk?
construction
I'm
manager.
sorry,
Again,
CMR.
that's what I've got to look into
Too many,
next.
too many
Right, I know.
acronyms.
Yeah, that's what I have to look into next. I have the same question.
Ms. Sells?
That was really my question, is what does that mean
Right.
for us in terms of how far do we have to step back
Right.
to then continue to move forward? So
Sure.
the sooner we find that out, the
Absolutely. That'll be my next step. And obviously, with all of these, you know, there's a pre-construction fee that we pay the CMAR. We've been all the way through bidding, so they are owed that, no doubt. And but it's at this point, do we have to discontinue and put it out for bid? I don't know. I'll find out.
Yeah, I think I agree with the sentiment as well as the action plan. I think, give our regrets to Dr. Baxter and the team that we're going to not be able to do this, but I think from a fiduciary perspective, it's a responsible decision. Now, if you and Mr. Martin and Ms. Bay can come up with a legal option for us to look at alternative bids and there's a way for us to reduce that number, I think we'd be very open to receiving some recommendations from you in the future.
Okay.
Near future, I mean.
Right. Okay. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Appreciate all your work on
Sure.
this.
Thank you.
Next item is the Human Resources Audit Final Report is presented by Gibson Consulting. So just a reminder as for the team as well as for those watching, how did we get here? This is one of 3 audits that we performed in our first year as an audit committee. One was the board, we audited ourselves. Second was a PEMS audit, employee services audit and a PEMS audit. This is the results of the employee services audit. So we've completed the board audit. This is the employee services audit where the board is going to get a review. This has had multiple interactions between Gibson and staff, as well as Gibson staff and the board, and then Gibson and staff to review comments. And so what you're going to see tonight from Mr. Gibson and Kent is the final report. Just as an FYI, two things, and then we can move quickly into Ms. Bay's item at the end, is we are waiting on the PEMS report. Staff has provided the comments to Mr. Gibson and his team. We'll see that as a committee, hopefully before my time ends as chair of the committee, which will be the end of the month, which is the goal, by the way. And then that final report, though, it'll go through multiple iterations. We'll come back probably, Mr. Gibson and Dr. Rogers are going to work out the timing at our October meeting, similar to this in the work session. And then we have other audits that are starting, which you'll hear more about as we start those. There'll be 2 audits that I think start in September. Is that correct? Around September. And one is facilities and one is, I always get it wrong, student services versus student activities. So construction, did I say facilities? It's construction. So that's where we're at holistically. Mr. Gibson will take us through this. Ms. Smith and staff, Brenda and Melissa and everybody, thank you for doing this. Ms. Smith went through a surgery as we were getting comments back to Gibson after a review with the committee. So a lot has transpired, and we've had a couple iterations. And so thanks for your cooperation on this. Looking forward to how we can support the action items from this. So there will be action items that come from this discussion, and the committee, the audit committee, will work with staff on implementing those, similar to what we're doing with things like the 5-year plan, the the governance strategy, or the governance framework, the superintendent instrument. It's things that we came from the board audit. So with that, Mr. Gibson, thank you for coming up, and coming up from Austin, and floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. My name is Greg Gibson. I'm president of Gibson Consulting Group, and we were asked to perform this audit of the employee services function for Lewisville ISD. Sitting to my left is Kent Ingram, a senior auditor for this particular audit. And joining us by audio, I believe, is Dr. Elaine Howard. Elaine, are you there?
I'm here, Greg.
Okay, we got the audio thing fixed.
Everything's great on my side.
That's all right. I heard you earlier. We could barely hear you, but we can hear you quite well now. So tonight we're going to go through the audit results. This was the first departmental audit for LISD, and so as you all remember, last fall the board initiated a governance audit, which was the initial audit for the internal audit program, and the rationale being that the board, before it's going to go ask the internal audit function to go look at departments, that it would take a look at itself. And so that work was completed last fall. And so this spring, we started the employee service audit, which was the next one on the list. The report has been delivered to the board. That report, we're not going to do a page-by-page walkthrough. We're going to do a summary presentation. But in that report, there's an executive summary chapter. There's an introduction chapter. The executive summary goes into the details of our approach. It provides a summary of our audit findings, commendations, recommendations. And then there's an introductory chapter that provides some contextual information about employee services. And then there are 3 other chapters that get into the guts of the audit. And so tonight, the agenda will be to briefly discuss the audit objectives and scope, walk through the summary with you, and then discuss our major findings in the 3 areas: organization and management, employee services operations, and compensation and benefits. Before I start, I just wanted there are 2 important contextual comments I'd like to make. One is that the entirety of this audit, as was the governance audit, conducted during a pandemic. And so the challenges of that, in addition to just normal challenges of running a school system and running an employee services department, I just wanted to extend my professional and personal appreciation to Ms. Smith and her staff for providing us the data, being available for interviews, providing comments on the report, and providing their responses. It was just, it probably felt like it lasted a year and a half, but we really appreciate the efforts that your staff put forth, as well as Dr. Rogers and Dr. Rapp's efforts on this audit. Second is LISD hired Ms. Smith toward the end of last year, and there were several initiatives that were already underway. We tried to acknowledge some things that were underway in the report. But several initiatives started, were not yet complete, and so we really couldn't assess the finished product of some of those initiatives just because they were early in the stages of completion. So I just wanted to mention that before we start. There were 2 primary audit objectives. One is to evaluate compliance, efficiency, and effectiveness of the LISD Employee Services Department. You will see that these objectives are very similar for each departmental audit that we do or anyone else does for LISD. And second is to identify opportunities for improvement for the Employee Services Department, as well as acknowledge best practices that are in place in the Employee Services Department. I'm going to go through the scope. There are several elements of the scope: organization and management. This is where we get into departmental roles and responsibilities, department staffing and expenditures, and performance management. Employee services operations includes position management, employee recruitment and onboarding, employee relations, and employee evaluation. Again, these are all described in greater depth, and there's in the introductory chapter of the report, there's actually questions under each of these areas that were addressed during the audit. Next is compensation and benefits. We looked at compensation structures as well as pay equity, and we also looked at your employee benefits programs. Several best practices were noted. The staffing allocation model was something we don't see very often. The one that you have here was a commendable model in that it actually acknowledges student needs. Most of the staffing models that we see for schools, most of them are based on the number of students. Very few are based on the needs of the students. And so LISD recognizes that this is just not a numbers game, that you can't just assign the same formula to every school regardless of need, and has incorporated student needs into their staffing allocation model. Second, we heard from several stakeholders in the process that there was a very quick and effective establishment of an automated onboarding process during COVID-19. Most of the comments we received during the audit were in the spring, so a lot of it related to the process that happened last summer. Third, the depth of compensation and benefits information included on the website was noteworthy. And you may just think that this is an obvious disclosure, but if you look on most other district websites, they don't provide the information. We think that probably helps your participation rates, increases your employees' understanding of those benefits, and we thought it was noteworthy. Access to on-site benefit liaison from your third-party administrator. I think you have your TPA is relatively new, and they've assigned an on-site person to provide support. This is wonderful. Whoever wrote this into your contract, this is a commendable practice because it provides a really valuable service, and it really helps them monitor program operations, and be more responsive for program support. There are 20 recommendations in the report, 5 related to organization and management, 8 related to employee services, and 7 related to compensation and benefits. In the introductory, not the executive summary chapter, but in the next chapter, we provide some background data about staffing and the overall staff resources at LISD. And so one of the most important ratios for us auditors that look at this kind of data is looking at the total student to total staff ratio. Since 80% plus of our expenditures relate to staffing, this is a really important ratio because it shows your overall staff efficiency. And so this is similar to a pupil-teacher ratio, but it covers all staff. And so similar to a pupil-teacher ratio, if this goes down, then you have more employees relative to your student population, and if it goes up, you have fewer employees relative to your student population. This ratio has remained pretty flat. It's had minor decrease, minor increase, but your level in 1920 is the same as 15-16, and why this is particularly noteworthy is you've had a slight decline in enrollment. And as you all know, the state funding system does not reward you for declining in enrollment size. It's easier to grow in Texas if you're a school district than it is to shrink because of the way the school funding system works. So how you manage your employee resources and your staffing levels is really important. I think it reflects on the financial diligence of making sure that our staffing is consistent with our number of students and accordingly the funding. The overall summary, most of these are covered in the introductory chapter. There was a 2018-19 internal survey that was done by the district. We did not do an independent survey as part of the audit. This survey was done and it reflected high customer satisfaction with employee services. We also received quite a few favorable comments when we interviewed stakeholders, including principals, the campus administrators, as well as other stakeholders, department heads that rely on human resources to provide employees. So customer satisfaction is it's a good metric to track, and it's good that you track that and reported the results in that internal survey. Second, we believe that based on our audit work that the accountability for employee services performance, and again, this is about systems and processes, but that accountability is limited by the current organizational structure, which is changing and was changing throughout this audit. But the chart the pre-existing chart that was in place when we arrived for the audit, which we'll talk about in just a second, that structure may be impeding accountability. Lack of performance indicators is impeding accountability, and some outdated job descriptions. We think all of those need attention so that accountability can be improved. And so we'll talk about some of those here in a minute. Some of the information systems are underutilized, resulting in some less efficient processes and minor control weaknesses. And so in the report, you will see some process map diagrams that are quite involved because your processes are quite involved. But on those maps, we identified certain areas where there are potential inefficiencies and certain areas where there are minor control weaknesses that we addressed in our audit. The last major summary comment is that we discovered through our analysis of compensation that some pay inequities exist, and this is partially resulting from some subjective pay guidelines. And we'll also talk about that in more detail. So I'm going to start with the organization and management section, and Kent's going to do the second chapters, and Elaine, please chime in as we go through these to supplement our discussion. The current organization structure, and I'm going to show you the diagram in a minute, but it doesn't visually demonstrate accountability for the key functions, and that was one of the things we wanted to do in our recommendation. Was there are certain areas, and these key performance indicators align with those areas, and so we thought that the combination of those two things would really help establish accountability. Two things that did happen during the audit. One is that LISD realigned employee services directly under the superintendent. This was suggested as an implementation strategy during the governance audit. We were trying to look at a more logical alignment of functions, and also we wanted to relieve the span of control for a key leadership position. And so this was, we didn't recommend it during that audit because we knew this audit was coming. So we wanted to get through this audit and make sure that we still felt it was a good idea, and we early on felt like it was the right thing to do, and LISD has already made that change, I believe. The second thing, and you heard me call it employee services, it took us a month for us to call this employee services, because in most school systems it's called human resources, and we think that more accurately describes the work of the department than employee services. A minor thing, we may not have recommended it at all, but it just, to me, employee services kind of rings more of the old personnel department, these were all called personnel departments decades ago. So we feel like both of those changes were good changes by the district. So you can't see it, I'm going to walk you through, but this is the organization chart that we provided pursuant to our data request. So there's the Deputy Superintendent, Chief Executive Director of Employee Services, and then there was a compensation, benefits administrators, a coordinator of employee records, director of staffing, director of federal programs, and then there was an executive director, another executive director position. And so we looked at this organization chart, and one question we asked is who is accountable for what? And so some of them, it stands out pretty clearly who's accountable for what, compensation and benefits. But there are other key functions that we felt needed to be identified organizationally so that you could align them. And these are the functions on the next page, on the next slide, that we think are the key functions. And so what we proposed is we didn't establish positions or redraw your organizational chart. What we did was and it's on the next page, the next slide, we developed the logical alignment of what we believe are the key functions in human resources and the sub-functions, so that these 6 areas and the sub-areas we believe represent a logical alignment of the key functions that will help support accountability for those functions. So one of these functions that doesn't exist on the current organization chart is employee relations. And so there are several elements to employee relations, and so we thought that having that designation of responsibility and an employee relations leadership position would help establish accountability for that. I'll pause. Elaine, is there anything else about this functional alignment that you would like to mention?
Yes, sir. So one of the benefits of having functional organizational structure versus the position is that it supports longevity for the department. One, it brands the department by the services provided to employees. So when the employees have a need, they don't have to think of who's the person. They think of which area of the department do I need to be visiting with. So it allows in a district as yours that's fluid in staffing and growing in some areas, decreasing in others, that there brings a continuity for the service need versus the person need. You can see here that this doesn't necessarily reflect where your directors are sitting or what they're doing, but it does definitely address the functionality, the pathway of logical alignment of the different types of work that your department does. And they are already doing all of these things, but it wasn't quite reflected in the original organizational structure.
Thank you, Elaine.
Yes, sir.
The next aspect, the next recommendation related to the organizational structure was to develop key performance indicators for this department. So we did not find any that were really used to measure performance of the department or set targets of performance for the department. And when we were doing the risk assessment last year for the entire district, we noted that this was a common theme throughout most of the departments. So instead of just recommending that you start or implement this for the newly named Employee Human Resources Department, that we think this is a great time to start the district-wide effort to develop KPIs for all departments. And you may roll them out at a department at a time, but every audit that you have is going to have this same finding. And since it was raised in the risk assessment, it was raised in this first audit, it gives the rest of your departments time to actually establish these KPIs for their departments and for the district to develop a system to track and report on these KPIs and we developed some, I think we provided you some implementation suggestions on how best to do that. But we do this just for this department, and then next year, construction management or student services or whatever you're doing in the future, if we're going to have very similar findings for these other areas. And so we're trying to help you get ahead of that recommendation in the other departmental audits. Next is to implement. In fact, you're already in process of implementing. It just wasn't visible yet when we received the data early this calendar year, was to implement a comprehensive job description review and update process. So there's a chart, I believe it's on page 31 in the report, that shows that the job descriptions, on the job description it says who you're reporting to. And then on the organizational chart, you can look up it should, when you have a box and it's connected to a line and the box above that box, that should be the person you're reporting to. Well, they were just not in sync with each other because they were developed at different times and they weren't updated at the same time. And so those need to be in sync. just so it's clear to an employee, because some of these, like the organization chart, may be on the website. The employee's job description is shared when they take the job, and what we don't want to do is confuse anybody about who their boss is and who will be doing their performance evaluation. There were other job descriptions that did not reflect the work of the people of what the people were doing based on our interviews and definition of processes in the human resources area. And some of the job descriptions, 2 of the job descriptions were almost identical except for who they reported to. And so we just need to make sure when we look at these job descriptions that we put a lot of thought into them. And we also made some recommendations about minimum skill levels for certain positions. School systems, many school systems have a tendency to require this experience or that experience. And this experience might be human resource experience or school leadership experience. School leadership experience is great. It may not automatically qualify you to be a leader of a human resources department in a 52,000 student school district. And so you have someone who meets those credentials, but it's something that if your job description doesn't change, you would have the risk of actually moving backwards from that. And so we just want you to upgrade certain, not all of the job descriptions, but certain of the key leadership positions to make sure you have the necessary experience levels and certification requirements for providing the leadership in this area. The other 2 organizational recommendations, I'll just mention briefly: strengthen control over personnel files. We did audit testing of several different areas. Personnel files was one of those. We took a sample. The results of that sample is in the report, and it just shows the percentage of files that were missing certain elements. One of the reasons that you had missing elements in some of the files was that there wasn't a checklist that was in place. We believe one was developed during the audit, and that the administration agreed that this was something that was needed. And then using that checklist to actually go back and have someone do what we did periodically, is someone who's not developing those files come in and do a test audit to make sure that we're actually have the things that we're supposed to have in those files. Again, you don't always think about those until you need them, and then if they're incomplete, it could put you at risk. If there's an employee dispute, an employee complaint, there might be some information that's pertinent to that in the file. You just want to make sure they're complete. The last recommendation in this section was to develop standard operating procedures for all major employee services processes. This is also in process, and we looked at a preliminary table of contents. So this is an ongoing thing. Processes or procedures manuals are very time consuming. When you're trying to get people in the door and meet other demands, SOPs often get assigned a lower priority, and appropriately so. But this is just something that we shouldn't forget about, and it will help us train people. It will help us define job descriptions by starting with the actual procedures and then figuring out what positions they belong to. So they're important elements in what we do. So I'm going to pause there and turn it over to Kent. And I think Kent and with Elaine's help, we're going to wrap up the rest of the 2 chapters.
Thank you, Greg. And before I get started, I wanted to thank Sheila and Melissa Cobb as well. This is a very hard role to be our client liaison, wrangling a lot of data and scheduling interviews and focus groups. So I just wanted to pass my thanks on. In this section, we're covering a few things. Recommendations related to position management, employee relations, recruitment and onboarding, and employee evaluations. Our first recommendation is regarding kind of reassigning certain responsibilities during the position creation and assignment processes. So we did a process analysis and performed interviews over the creation and assignment of positions. We discovered that the records coordinator position could both create and fill positions within Munis. This is an unnecessary risk to the district and represents a breakdown of segregation of duties. There is a risk, and We didn't see any evidence of this, just want to preface that, that there could be a creation of a fictitious employee, and then that employee could be filled in a funded, budgeted position. The district does have compensating controls over this. The records coordinator position has to get written approval before assigning an employee to a position that position created. However, that does not prevent the records coordinator position from using their access in Munis. There's no system level control to systematically review what they're doing in the system. To help mitigate this, we recommended that the staffing specialist positions should take over all the assignment of employees to positions, and the record coordinator should not have that ability. This next high priority recommendation was in the employee relations front. It was modifying the current employee grievance process. So currently, if an employee wishes to file a grievance, their first form must be submitted to legal services. We think this could unintentionally create a defensive stance and a kind of an unwelcoming atmosphere for the employee between them and LISD. We think this could potentially prevent employees from following the grievance process and filing necessary grievances. We're not saying that legal services should not be included at all. We think, in fact, they should be included in, even during level ones, to make sure that we're following the legal timelines and meeting our requirements. We just think having them in such a headline on the form and in the website could maybe depress grievances unnecessarily so.
I'm going to pause you there if I could, because I think this is a complicated one. And Dr. Rogers, we've talked about it. So this is one, and we'll talk about a lot of these at some point in the future. But this is one where essentially what they're saying is the way that we try to consolidate grievances into, and legal's participating in that, is that maybe there's a softer way to do that where on the front end, and I don't know, Dr. Rogers, if you want to comment on it, but just so the board has proper clarity and consistency in what we're hearing.
Yeah, and Greg and I had a great discussion last, I think, Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, and this is probably one of the areas where we, I wouldn't say totally disagree, but we, I think, agree on this. One, there needs to be, and there actually is something, but it needs to be more robust, a way for employees to find access to get help in anything, including employee issues, and that not look like that they have to go to legal to do that. We totally agree with that. And so, we certainly aren't going to, and I know Greg and them aren't suggesting that legal be removed from the grievance process, but we certainly agree, and we had this discussion that we need to at least soften the approach that, hey, you've got to go to legal before you can get any answers on issues that might lead to a grievance. And so, even something as simple as, hey, to get a form, you have to go to legal. Well, you can go to, submit it to grievances.com and get the forms, without it looking like legal's starting from level one. We know that policy says, hey, it's our goal to solve all grievances at the lowest level. And so I think it's really some semantics here. I think we totally understand. We want to create a little better one-stop shop where an employee can reach out to HR on a lot of different questions and get an answer from someone other than legal. And we already do that, but we need to sort of rearrange some things. And so I don't know if that answers your question.
Yep, thank you.
And just to tack on to that, we're recommending that occur in the employee relations function within that proposed alignment. That could be part of that one-stop shop that Dr. Rogers mentioned. And you see that kind of our third bullet point on that slide. We have many other recommendations within the employee operations section of the report. These were recommendations that had a medium or low priority. They didn't have a high priority assigned to them by us. The first and third recommendations you see here were related to some process inefficiencies that we saw. We found many points of manual data entry into separate Excel workbooks, different information systems, and even some developed databases that our technology folks helped us create within our position creation and hiring processes. Anytime you have manual data entry points, there's always a risk that something could be done inaccurately. And this also just slows down processes. It's not an efficient use of the technology we already have. And so what we recommended was expanding the use of existing technologies within our position creation and hiring processes to reduce the number of points we have to enter data, and then that would in turn increase process efficiency and reduce the likelihood of error in those two processes. Our second recommendation on this slide speaks to our staff diversity. We included some figures in our report that showed the trend over time, and there has been some success in closing the gap in the representation of minorities within our teacher group especially. However, what we saw was that there was no formal target, no formal action plan guiding our efforts to do this. In the absence of measurable objectives, there's always, again, some of that accountability risk that we're not staying on top of these goals. We're not saying that's happening, but we just didn't see any evidence of any formal or measurable goals to increase diversity of our workforce. We recommended that these be adopted and that LISD create an action plan to accomplish those goals. And one thing we pointed out in the note, which I'll just, in the report that I'll note here, in that 2018-19 survey, there were a lot of really great ideas that were provided by our principals and department leaders regarding staff diversity. So that could be a great avenue as well, regularly surveying our folks to see what are their ideas, what's been their experience, and how can we draw on that. Our next one we're going to talk about here is regarding job satisfaction surveys. So we reviewed survey instruments that were sent to the staff each year, and it's through Panorama, I believe, is the system that you use for that. We reviewed these. We didn't see any specific direct questions to employee job satisfaction. There were a lot of things that hinted at it, but nothing that came straight out and said, are you satisfied with your job? We think this is important, and if you include specific questions within these instruments, that can allow for really thorough and rigorous data analysis, something that could also occur in this new employee relations functional area. They could analyze the survey data, use that to inform priorities, and figure out ways how can we improve retention of our staff, how can we help them grow, increase satisfaction with their jobs. We think that would be a really great data point and something that could drive the department forward. Our next one in this area is regarding career pathways. We think established career pathways can improve recruiting effectiveness. You're trying to get people in, and they know exactly where could I end up at LISD within this job. And we also think this could help improve employee engagement. You're always motivated if you know, if I do well here, where can I go next? Pathways do exist for certain groups. We saw that through reviewing organization charts and job descriptions. However, it's not widespread. This was mainly focused within our facilities and kind of the auxiliary personnel, whereas very clearly you could see the hierarchy there. To go from maintenance tech 1 to maintenance tech 2, for example, that was not something that was widespread throughout the district. We recommended that the LISD HR work to establish those pathways and then also communicate those pathways to our existing employees, make them aware of what their opportunity is here at this great district. The last recommendation within the employee services operations section was regarding performance evaluations. This was another thing like career pathways where there were pockets of this. Some employee groups had evaluations that included goals and then tied to their professional development needs. That's really a best practice, is to have all that linked. We didn't see that in certain employee groups. Their evaluations made no mention of any goals for the employee or gaps in professional development or what they should do to improve. So we're recommending that the instruments be revised to include this goal setting process, and professional development needs within the instruments themselves. And once those are all aligned, that would just further improve the effectiveness of the performance evaluation currently happening within LISD.
Before we go on, Elaine, is there anything you wanted to mention or supplement on this list on this page?
Yes, I think when we talk about the career pathways for employees, I don't want to get this confused with any of the work that's currently being done by the state with regard to teacher designations. I think that's kind of a little separate animal in and of itself. But even within your HR department, we saw that there wasn't potential for growth for a specialist. I'll use a record specialist as an example. You have a lead specialist who did not have a different job description or different pay grade than the people that she's leading. And so to differentiate different levels, like level 1 specialist, level 2, will help encourage that those people that do stay with you, and you guys have really great retention of your employees, that they're rewarded for it, that their growth in the organization continues to progress. And so this is something that a lot of industries and schools are starting to really look at, because we want to be able to keep employees who we've invested in for training and development to stay with the organization. So that's all I have on that.
Thank you, Elaine. Our next section is over compensation and benefits. And within this section, we analyzed compensation equity within LISD and also the benefit programs offered to employees. We included here a figure showing the average teacher pay levels compared to our TASB peer group. LISD was within 2 percentage points below the median for each teacher experience level included on this graph, and within 0.25% for overall average teacher salaries. So we're approximating our peers here with teacher pay slightly below in some areas. Overall, almost neck and neck. We performed a lot of data analysis to look at potential pay inequities within LISD. We're referring to this as salary compression. And before we dive into the recommendations in this area, we wanted to provide some context regarding what exactly does this mean. So salary compression can occur either when employees with similar experience levels are compensated differently, or employees are compensated identically even though their experience levels differ. So if I've been doing something for 15 years, that's relevant experience, but I'm making the same as someone's been doing it for 10 years, that would represent a pay inequity. We want to note that these do tend to occur because of good intentions. We want to pay people what they're worth. And sometimes this will happen when someone's trying to hire an employee, but the rate to get that employee exceeds what we have set for that position. And so they just need to get this qualified staff in, they'll pay them more, but there won't be a kind of look back and see how does this affect our pay bands for that employee group. Our analysis that we performed did indicate potential inequity across many pay grades. And so we include an excerpt, one of the figures here, that you'll see in the report. And actually, in one of our appendices, we include all of these charts for the pay grades where we saw this compression occur. The x-axis represents the total years of service. The y-axis is the hourly pay, and each dot represents an employee. And so you can see here, this is not necessarily aligned with what we expect. You would expect there to be not necessarily exactly direct correlation, but somewhat direct correlation between their experience and their hourly pay. This pay grade includes positions such as coordinators of benefits and purchasing cards, employee background specialists, certification officers, record specialists. So these are the administrative support positions. Our additional data analysis showed instances where employees were paid above the board-approved ranges for that pay grade. Want to note that there was none that were paid below the minimum, which is good. Going above is certainly better than going below the minimum, so that was good to see. And we thought the prevalence of salary compression that we showed in that chart can really be attributed to vague guidelines for determining pay and also for guidelines for reclassifying positions. To improve this, we recommended that LISD create an action plan to correct pay inequity, and there's a few steps that you'll see in that report. First, we recommended they determine the full extent of salary compression and the full extent of the pay levels outside of the board-approved ranges for each position. And we said they can do that by essentially reperforming the analysis we did. Next, they should estimate the cost to LISD for correcting this salary compression. Based on that, there should be priorities that are established. Typically, you'd prioritize your lower paid positions first, as those are the employees that are most impacted by this problem. And then they should develop a plan to address it over the next 3 years. This is definitely a long process to correct this issue, which I believe administration recognizes as well. They should also eliminate the subjective guidelines or subjective language in the pay guidelines. You'll see our next recommendation. We talk about some more formal formulas for employee experience. They should implement controls to review, are we falling out of the board-approved ranges for pay? They should evaluate all positions for reclassification every 3 years to see, are we still in line with what this position is actually doing? How is this comparing to the market rate for this pay? We talk about that as well, aligning pay grades with the market to minimize the risk of future salary compressions. And then finally, there should be annual follow-up analyses to ensure progress is being made each year to fix the salary compression that we saw.
Elaine, I don't know if you have anything to supplement this, but I know this is a tough recommendation. This is a common problem in public education and elsewhere. And so it's not an easy one to tackle, and it will take time. Elaine, I think Kent covered everything that was in the report. Is there anything else you wanted to provide on this?
Only that I do believe that the current administration overseeing the department is very aware and experienced in addressing these type of compression issues. This is not something that will be fixed overnight, and the scope and degree to which it's affected the district will also have to be really dug out. But I'm confident that the administration has a very good grasp of what we saw. They had already started to see some of that and understand the steps that will be needed to be taken to get there.
Thank you.
Our next high priority recommendation within compensation was regarding standardizing these formulas for determining what the credible years of service was. We think that was one of the reasons for this potential pay inequity because experience is the primary driver for compensation within school systems. And so how we looked at this is we did an audit test to see if the credible years applied to an employee matched up with our recalculation based on the guidelines given to us by administration. And so out of 25 employees, 6 exceptions were noted where the employee's credible years of service did not align with our recalculation. To help address this, factors that drive pay determination should be standardized for each job, family, or employee group. And this would reduce the subjectivity involved in making salary placements and determinations. Similar to what you saw in our employee services operations section, we had a lot of other recommendations in compensation and benefits that were our medium or low priorities. We recommended an additional position within the compensations function to assist with transactional responsibilities. Our compensation administrator position was currently doing nearly everything in compensation, including transaction, evaluating our competitiveness of pay, doing analysis. So what we're saying is there's probably a little more support needed for that position. We should have someone who can be leveraged to help with the more day-to-day transactional level decisions, and that will free up time for this compensation administrator to provide higher value activities, more data analysis, more evaluation, observing the market, seeing how competitive are we being. Similar to other recommendations in this audit, we saw another opportunity to increase our use of existing technology, particularly within our employee self-service module. This is through Munis, and there is some use of this of employees that our employees are using, but we thought it should be expanded to maximize the utility to the employee and also the utility to the district, reducing the amount of questions they have to go to that one-stop shop in employee relations if they can query this information themselves through the self-service module. And then we moved into our benefits area. There were no high priority areas within high priority recommendations and benefits. They were all medium or low. Through interviews and data analysis, we noted a lack of benefits reporting analysis. The primary cause of this was data being stored in separate information systems that did not have any integration. So it was hard to generate reports because you'd had to go to multiple places to pull this, time-consuming, not conducive to analysis. We recommended that LISD focus on data collection, monitoring, and evaluation to inform benefit program decision-making. We need to use participation rates, and also you could do a survey data as well to see what changes are needed within our benefit programs. So that is what we recommended for that. We also, in this one, recommended another position to help with some of these integrations and report generation. I believe in the report we referred to it as a HR information system analyst. So it would be kind of a liaison between technology and human resources that can help do this, help do some analysis as well. Regarding program participation, we looked at the participation rates of all the voluntary benefit programs. And we learned that 10 out of 21 voluntary benefit programs had less than 10% participation, and 3 programs had less than 5% participation. To help correct this, or not to improve this, say correct, we recommended that LISD consolidate programs where possible to increase participation, eliminate low enrollment programs to avoid administration costs, and then just do more education and awareness for our staff. That could be in the year-round webinar, online Q&A sessions, open enrollment meetings, and then also allowing our benefit providers to participate in meetings to try to engage more staff in these wonderful programs we're offering. The last recommendation we had in the report was regarding internal controls over benefits. We determined that the reconciliations and some of the transaction level review controls were sufficient. They're appropriately mitigating risk. One thing that we didn't see was an overall lack of monitoring, kind of some benefit discrepancy data, looking at trends in benefits. Again, I'll say the transaction level controls we saw were adequate. This is more in the realm of monthly reporting, looking at trends for reasonableness. And so we recommended that there's a monthly report to the Chief Executive Director of billing discrepancies, overpayments, or salary adjustments and accruals. And also there should be a periodic audit of deductions and changes being made in payroll by the benefits department, checking to see were these changes appropriate, do they follow the appropriate process. And so again, the internal control environment we think was pretty strong, but this is just something to further improve it within benefits. And with that, that concludes our presentation. Happy to open up to questions.
Before we go to questions, Dr. Rogers, Dr. Rapp, Ms. Smith, anything you'd like to add?
That's pretty thorough. You know, I will
only 20 recommendations.
I will credit, Dr. Bonner. Actually, he and I began discussing, I think, employee services, HR audit 2 or 3 years ago, as I told Greg, we're always very open to looking on ways to improve and to have a different perspective look at it, and certainly that's what's been provided. So, they mentioned Munis a couple of times, and no one in this room, including myself, I don't even believe Dr. Bonner was at the table when Munis was adopted. We know that there are issues with the way we utilize that tool. I think Dr. Rapp can probably share better than even I can the amount of work that a large group, including Mr. Colbeck, Dr. Bonner, Dr. Rapp, Mike Ball, our previous CFO, worked on for about a year, trying to sort of get a handle on why it was implemented the way it was, why there were parts that weren't being used, and so on. So it's not quite as easy of an answer as I thought when I asked them to undertake that task. So, but we understand that there are some limits to that, some of which are self-imposed, and some are not. Hey, let's just start doing this tomorrow. But anyway, I don't know if y'all have anything else to add, but anyway, we'll go with questions.
Okay, and we'll open with Ms. Hassett, if you don't mind, if we go to Ms. Cox, and then we'll come after everybody that's not on the committee is done. We'll come back to you, Ms. Brosnick, and we are going to, or the committee is going to take a look at each of the recommendations and work with administration on. You remember what we did with the board audit, right? Every item we had agreed, disagreed, and then an action. And we're trying to implement those that were actionable. So it would be the same type of thing here, and all the notes are always kept up to date, so the board has access to those. Thank you to Ms. Brosnick for that. So, Ms. Cox, you're first.
Well, first and foremost, thank you very much. It's a very thorough presentation. I really appreciate it. And big thank you to you, Sheila, for doing this. I'm not sure why we did, I'll be honest, during a pandemic. Maybe should have waited, but thank you very much because you had other stuff on your plate, so kudos to you and your team. Mr. Miller, are we going to be hearing from the committee just about their thoughts during this process as well during our meeting tonight, or is that just going to be in their comments from y'all as a committee?
Yeah, I think when we go around, each of us will provide our comments.
Okay. So the two things that really stood out for me were, as I'm going to say, even with the governance that we did, is just an action plan and a timeline. I really want to know that. And I see Ms. Hassett has a spreadsheet, which I never thought I would say this, but I really like this during these plans that we do. So very appreciative of that. I really think we need to, if we're going to implement these things and pay for these services, we need an action plan and how we're going to implement them. And I want to see them put into action. My other question is to you is, you've mentioned a lot of streamlining and processes, which look very good to me in the flow charts, but what do you base that off of? Other districts you've seen, or just how do you base that information? Because, is there data that shows this, or I would just be curious of why you feel these things.
I'll start and Kent can fill in. When you do process mapping, the issues related to that process just appear. We distinguish the manual from the automated processes. So whenever you see a manual process, we ask, why is that process manual? And so that automatically creates an opportunity for an efficiency if there's a manual process that we can't figure out how to automate it. And so we need to pursue and get the district to pursue possible ways to automate that process. Now, can it be automated through Munis? That would be ideal. Can it be automated through something that integrates with Munis? That might be a secondary factor. There's probably a cost benefit of that to be considered. We also look for excessive use of spreadsheets. Spreadsheets, people love spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets. Kent loves spreadsheets, even more than I love spreadsheets. They're great tools, but when you use them for transactions, it increases the risk of error because you're entering in a spreadsheet and then you have to enter that from a spreadsheet or the totals into another system, and it's not all integrated, so you lose the checks and balances. So when we do a process map, we're kind of eyeing for manual processes, processes that don't add value. Sometimes we see excessive approval levels that delay the process, that we may not need 6 levels of approval. We might need 3 levels of approval. And then the use of ancillary spreadsheets that really kind of make things even riskier for the process. So that's one of the great advantages of process mapping. Are there best practice process maps? Yes, but every information system, their ideal process might do it a little bit differently. And so if we can eliminate the manual processes, pull out the value, the ones that don't add value, and minimize our use of spreadsheets, we will have fewer boxes on the page and a leaner process. That answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Bonner.
Very good. Well, I was just jotting down a few things, and having knowledge of the processes that you're talking about, I'm appreciative for that because I was able to maybe follow along and not to malign anybody, but understand more deeply some of the things you referenced. So, when Dr. Rogers and I talked about that 2 or 3 years ago, prior to the process with Gibson Consulting, it was to improve on what we were doing. And so I'm very excited to see this process come to fruition. I do have a couple of things that I wanted to say in regard to that. One, I don't want anybody to walk out thinking that the staff in the department are not handling things in an efficient manner, and I hope nobody assumes that because that was not my experience, and I don't think that's been Sheila's experience either. And so I appreciate your head nod no. The other thing that I would like to just point out, I think this is a great opportunity to become more efficient and improve process, and so I'm excited to see that. I do have some concerns. I wouldn't be truthful if I didn't say this. There's been some staff added to human resources already. You recommend a couple more. I am concerned about the inherent costs in those improvements, whether it's in staffing or new technology or anything along those lines. But overall, excited to see this come to fruition and looking forward to some changes.
Thank you, Dr. Bonner. Ms. Sells.
Yes, thank you for a most thorough presentation, and I think that everybody around the table can agree that we're happy to move on in this audit, in this internal audit process, and this was a great presentation tonight. I am just curious, not only of the things that were said by my colleagues, but also in the summary of audit recommendations, has the committee, will you address the timelines for each of those recommendations and how many staffing hours will they take place? And if there is a completion time for each of those? And if so, will those be presented to the board, or when will we see those? Because those determining factors might, if you're going to ask for our recommendations again, might have an impact on how I feel and how I would rank those.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think, again, hopefully I'm not on the committee when they put this together, but if you look at this in sequence, this is similar to the process we had before. The final report, which did get reviewed by administration and the board audit committee and the combined parties, and then some one-off conversations with Dr. Rogers and Dr. Rapp, and in some cases Sheila. Our objective was to come tonight with the final report, which is what you're seeing. Our objective tonight was not to have a complete action plan because we haven't, while we've had discussions about where we're at as it relates to agree, partially agree, disagree, I think there are some discussions, and that's why Dr. Rogers and Mr. Gibson spoke in the last couple weeks on how to move forward on some of those issues. They're not material dissensions. As Dr. Rogers mentioned, probably the one that had the most for us to discuss was the thing about handling grievances. That said, we want to respect the fact that, in 9 days, we start back to school, and as Ms. Cox asked questions of Ms. Smith before, we've got some staffing issues. So as it relates to the timing of us collaborating and getting back to you, we'd ask for a little bit of grace, probably into early September. Remember, we're going to see the final appeals in October. And was this ideal that we've gone this far? As Mr. Gibson said, no. It was protracted because of the pandemic, the inability to get, whatever you call it, focus groups together, different things like that, not able to come on site, et cetera. So I think that, which you may see recommendations of, whether it's additional staff or additional expense, which are really the only things that we need to be involved in at this point. I would guess, Mr. Gibson and Dr. Rogers, that most of these things are administrative actions that we would just need to see that some action is being taken, and that could be that there's agreement that there will be no action, agreement with the committee and administration that no action will be taken, and the board would see that. As if there's something that's more urgent and compelling where we need to add staff, I mean, Sheila and I have talked about this. I think that anything that she's anticipated from the audit, she's probably talked to Mr. Youngs about, and Dr. Rogers. As, again, remember, we realigned. Ms. Smith reports to Dr. Rogers effective July 1, which, as Mr. Gibson said, was going to be a recommendation out of the board audit, but didn't happen because where they were informed this was going to happen. So with all that said, that's a long way of saying you're going to see more, but there are a number of these things that may move forward very quickly as administration has time to address them, but they will not be ignored. The objective of this audit is not that it's complete tonight and nothing happens, but that, to Dr. Bonner's point, that some of these things, processes improve, and accountability and controls. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. And I had only one other comment, and I just wanted to make note of some of these recommendations. They not only, to me, create a more effective and efficient human resources department and make for better employees, longer longevity of employees and stuff, but at the ultimate end, if you look at those things that are recommended, you can tie each of those to an increase and a more positive impact of those things in student outcomes. And so I just wanted to make a note of that, because at the end of the day, I think that even though we want to have employees that are satisfied, we want to be comparable in the pay scales, we want all of these things. At the end of the day, we also want students who succeed, and that should be our end goal. And I think that those audit recommendations, you could tie each of those to that. And so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sells. Ms. Lasan.
So thank you for this. Again, echoing everyone else, thank you for taking your time. I know that was probably a lot to bite off. You know, when you first got here, you got an audit, you got a pandemic, so that does not go unnoticed, so thank you. Some of these charts and graphs in here are really neat, really good representations. I'm really also very fascinated with these, the kind of the one-off experience versus pay, graphs. Those are really interesting to see. Okay, why is that? I know it's only one person, but why is that, So, and I guess, knowing that we're going to discuss this in the future, and, I'm sure you'll give us a list of things that have been implemented and what have you, I guess I would just hope that you would just be honest with, with the board and with, Dr. Rogers and whoever about what you really think about these things, and this is why, and what have you. So I hope that, because, we rely, of course, on your expertise. And, of course, we have a sitting board member who may know a thing or two about it as well. But I hope that you would be honest with us and say, hey, this is good, but let's do this, or, anyway, yeah. Okay.
I don't think we need to worry about that.
I kind of figured not, but I just want to say that. So.
Ms. Hassett.
Thank you for the report. Really good report. And thank you very much to you and your team, Ms. Smith. Y'all did an excellent job through all the things that were thrown at you. Really excellent job. So thank you. As a member of the audit committee, I definitely already have a chart with a timeline started, because I think the board for sure needs to have this process moving forward so that we know what we're doing with the items in the timeline. So we need to have our part right away, and then the timeline will start to move on the items as as administration, has time to work in these while actually educating our children. So I think we, as a board, need to get this nailed down quickly and continue this process with every single internal audit or stop doing them. So.
Ms. Prosnick?
Well, thank you for being the guinea pig as the first department to go through this. I will say that as a committee member, I learned some things that I hope we change as a committee moving forward on the future department audits. But I appreciate that, and I thought that your responses were thoughtful, and you can disagree. We certainly disagreed with certain things that Gibson came up with on ours, so I appreciate that. And Greg, I really appreciate the work that you and your team did. I appreciate that you were available to us when we had questions, and that this was a very thoughtful presentation. So I appreciate it. I've read this report now, I think, 4 times, so I've gotten really good at it. The only other thing that I will say is that I hope that we, when moving forward with our timeline, we also have follow-up timelines. That we can't just say it's going to be implemented in January of 2022, that we actually follow up in March of 2022 to see if it actually happened. It's beyond just, I think, creating a timeline. I'm always about the follow-up, because the initial ask is always easy, but the follow-up is what makes the difference. So I think that there are a lot of opportunities here to, make our star even brighter over our logo. I always say the most important thing I can do as a trustee is put a good teacher in the classroom, and that begins in your department. So I thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. Well, I'd like to thank our team for the work that they've done, and I know that we had a number of iterations on this, and at the same time, under Dr. Rapp, we were doing the PEMS audit and had a number of things going, including the pandemic, as did Gibson. So thank you for your work, Mr. Gibson, Mr. Ingram, Elaine, and I know Ollie's not here, but he may have helped on this one. I don't know. I'm sure he'll be here for the next one. But, when we went into this, excuse my voice, this was about efficiency, but it was about creating a service organization that, to Ms. Sell's point, is a means to an end, an ability to create student outcomes or to focus on student outcomes. And I think, in essence, we've done that, right? We've focused on process, efficiency, controls, service. And the other thing that we talked about early on in the audit was creating ambassadors for our employees and our retirees. And so, which is why it'd be good if the legislature gets back in to session and takes care of our retirees with their 13th paycheck, but that's up to them. So I think we all agree that this was a good experience, and I agree with Ms. Prosnick. We need to make sure we have good follow-up. I think our Team of 8 will fit very nicely into this, because Team of 8 is not going to be a one-time event. There will be one event, but we're going to focus on student outcomes, and so this ultimately affects student outcomes as well. So I think it'll come together well. But with that said, I don't have anything else. Does anybody else have any questions? Ms. Cox?
Just to allude kind of from Ms. Prosnick's thing is really what I would like to see also too from the committee is an evaluation process. She kind of just brought that up, but she mentioned about like what just happened, all that. I would like an evaluation process from the committee, what worked well, what didn't. So as we move through these other items that we're doing, what do we need to do differently? How should we look at this differently? How should we proceed with the interview process, et cetera?
I think that's fair. Ms. Assey,
Can I
you're going to...
ask a follow-up? Are you meaning an evaluation process of how we as a district interacted with
Yes, like how we did this process, how the process worked. I mean, Ms. Prosnick kind of mentioned, looking at things, evaluating them, but I think we should evaluate, our processes. How did it work with?
the audit itself?
Yes, the audit itself.
I think you should also evaluate us.
Yeah, when I said it. What I meant was how we as a committee worked, because I think, we learned from our own audit, and then this is our first department audit. I think that there were lessons, I'll just say, I personally learned in how to ask questions and to move forward, and in how we worked with our audit firm.
I think it's a fair request, and we've learned a lot. We audit ourselves. It's our first departmental audit. I would say, and Gibson, it's got another one with us to finish and another one to start. And so we've had a good partnership where, as many of you know, Greg's even made suggestions where I need to make sure that I'm following certain procedures. And so we've built a trustful relationship where I think a good partner is willing to say, hey, this is what you need to do and how you need to follow process. So a self-evaluation, I guess, is what we're suggesting here would be good. And I would offer as well, we'll review you, but perhaps review us, right? I mean, you got the chance the first time from a board perspective. That was direct. We did the best we could to kind of recover from the timeline on this. I mean, that's what we all struggled with, even internally, right? We were struggling with the timeline because of everything that was going on. And so was it absolutely efficient as it could be? No way. Will the ones going forward be better? Absolutely. And will they get better after that? So I think it's a fair point. And if we talk about being a continuous learning organization, this is an opportunity for us as a board to do that. And I'm very excited as we talk about Team of 8, because I think you're going to see that kind of inoculated into how we're going to do that going forward. So anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Thank you for coming up for this. Appreciate your
Thank you so
support.
much.
Elaine,
Greg,
good to see you again.
I do have one more thing. Could you
Take
please
care.
provide the presentation so we can put it on our under our audit committee notes, if nothing else?
Sure. Yeah, I think,
Got it? Great. Thank you.
fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Miss B, I'm not sure if you've ever had your own agenda item yet. Have you? Have you? Okay, maybe this is your second or third, but you're on deck.
Yes, TASB updates, I think 112 to now. So I will just cover TASB update 117. As you all know, periodically TASB will push out updates for its policy. When we receive those in our office, we push those to the department that oversees them. This specific policy comes from our purchasing department, overseen by Mr. Youngs. So we pushed it through to them for their review, and we always ask them if there's something that they would like to have proposed to the board. So this one specifically addresses the winter storm that we had in the spring. What it does is it delegates purchasing authority in a very limited capacity. So it's only for repairs of buildings or loss of equipment that would be over $50,000 in an emergency situation. But it puts it into policy. For instance, if a pipe burst and Dr. Rogers needs a contract for more than $50,000, then he would be able to do that, but he would be required under policy to provide the board with a report at the next meeting. So our board operating procedures does ask for 2 reads of a board policy, which is why this will now be coming to you at work sessions before it's placed on the agenda for board meetings. So I will take any questions.
I think we're back to Dr. Bronner. Brosnick.
My only question is, who decides what a catastrophe, emergency, or natural disaster is? Like, how is that determined? How's that determined?
It'll usually go by the governor's order when he does one.
Well, I think we should be able to fix that. Miss Ells? It is warm now that you say that.
She took my question. That was my who determines that and what event, and do we wait for that declaration and then he can act? And so those were my only questions. So you clarified that. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Ells. Ms. Hassan. Ms. Hass.
I did forget earlier to go back and look at CH Legal. So are tornadoes and hail damage on roofs, are those qualifying, or really is it just the biggies?
Yeah, it's really supposed to be in things that are so emergent that we can't bring them before a board meeting.
And does CH Legal specify better, since I forgot to check on that earlier?
They're only actually changing CH local, just
Right,
for
it just
clarification.
references C disaster exception, CH legal. I forgot earlier to go back and reference our board policy to see what disaster exception that was. Does it qualify better what it is and who it does?
Kind of puts a definition, but it's a little more
But
forced.
vague still?
Yeah,
Okay.
but as you know, legal will always be pushed through to our policies.
Ms. Cox? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bay. So we'll see a reading next week. And just as a reminder, to be consistent with our audit, we do have in the audit, one of the recommendations of us is that we come up with a schedule for updates, policy updates, I believe. And I don't know that we've agreed on the schedule yet, but we will work with Ms. Bay on that. That is an action item. I'm just, Ms. Cox, linking it to the audit so that you know that a lot of these things will, this doesn't tie to the audit. This is a action that we need to take. But going forward, we'll see kind of more of a proactive plan on when some of these things will cycle through. And Ms. Hassett and Dr. Bonner and Ms. Prosnick will come up with that plan. With that said, I think the meeting is adjourned at 9 o'clock.